Good evening. I'd like to call to order the 23rd meeting of fiscal year 2019 of the Milton Planning Board. I'm Cheryl Tagayas, the chair.
Denny Swenson, member.
Richard Bealey, member.
Julia Getman, clerk.
William Clark, Planning Director.
Lauren Masseur, Assistant Town Planner.
Kathleen O'Donnell, member.
April Anderson Lamoureux, member.
And we'd like to welcome our new member, Kathleen O'Donnell. Congratulations.
I'd like to thank Brian first for his hard work the last 5 years. Did he have
5 years, yes.
So,
Brian, I hope you're watching. Like you said to me.
Sure, he's glued to the TV.
He's not. I hope he's taking a nice night off after Carberry Walcott.
It was nice not having to carry in that binder, wasn't it?
Wasn't it?
Was.
I know there's a lot less paper on the desk.
Yes, a lot less paper. All right, so I'd like to take a couple of things out of order on the agenda. And I'm even going to do that on the next meetings because I want to talk about one of the dates, about whether we can change that date. So with that, we're going to jump right to new business, which would be first the A&R for 1259 Brush Hill Road.
Okay. So I'm going to recuse myself because I am in a covenant with my neighbor. So I'll be next
Okay.
door.
Okay.
So I'll turn this off somehow. You can carry on. I won't listen.
Yeah, and we have a plan here and an application and a checklist that Lauren prepared, or Lauren and Bill prepared. Thank you.
Thanks.
Hey, Marion, welcome, yes.
I'm Mary McKettrick. I represent Matthew Scheller and the Scheller Family Investment Trust. This is the owner of 1259 Brush Hill Road. And those of you who've been on the planning board for a couple of years will remember that there's been a subdivision of the Scheller property that you did a couple of years ago, an A&R plan creating 4 lots. And one of those lots, Lot B, was conveyed to DCR in June 2018. As a condition, as a further requirement in the purchase and sale agreement with DCR, the Schellers are required to convey additional land from Lot A to DCR. So that's what this A&R plan is about. And you want me to go up there and
Sure.
talk about it?
Sure. I think the color probably helps.
So there are 4 parcels being created here. The main parcel is Lot A1, that's the lot with the Scheller house on it. And that still has frontage on Hemingway Drive. The second parcel is a small parcel on the corner, Lot A2, that's going to be conveyed to DCR. The third parcel is Lot A3. This is actually by frontage and dimensions possibly a buildable lot, although it's on Avenue A, and it hasn't been determined what you would require for that frontage to be legal. But Lot A3 is going to be conveyed to DCR. And the remaining small parcel here, as a condition of the original purchase and sale agreement, is being retained by the Schellers in the event that in the future the lot owners here might want to acquire additional frontage on Avenue A. So it's a 22,982 square foot parcel. It's not buildable by itself. But that's why that piece is remaining. So this piece and this piece will continue to be owned by the Schellers. By the end of June, this piece and this piece will be conveyed to DCR, providing you approve an A&R plan, because we need a plan in order to convey those 2 parcels. So that's, I gave you, a little summary of what's going on here, but I'm not sure whether we talked about this when we were doing the original subdivision, but there was a section of the purchase and sale agreement that required that this conveyance take place. It was originally supposed to take place by December 2018. They gave us an extension because we didn't have the plan prepared yet, but they really want to finish it by June. So,
Okay,
here to answer questions.
okay. We have staff report.
Yes. We went through the application, the materials, the plan. As Marion has explained to you, there are no further buildable lots being created through this plan. The lot that remains with the house lot has adequate frontage, adequate dimensions, and it checks all of the requirements here for the approval not required submission.
With the exception of the filing fee? is
Yes,
that
with the
right?
exception of the filing fee, but we have an agreement that the plan will not be signed to endorse it until that fee is received.
Well, I will pay the filing fee tonight. I wasn't sure what it was supposed to be. I would respectfully request that the board consider making it $500 because we're not going to be actually creating a lot that's going to be developed. However, it's whatever the board decides. Normally, if you create a second buildable lot, and there's an existing one, it would be $1,000. So that's up to you. If you don't know what you want to do with it, you can let me know and I'll bring a check tomorrow, but
Yes, Bill?
I actually concur with Marion, and I think before the meeting I was saying the opposite, but now I agree with her because the blue parcels are actually going to be absorbed into the rest of the DCR land, which is the stuff on the other side of Hemingway Drive. So it's not creating a buildable lot. DCR is not going to turn around and they want to absorb it into their own parkland already. They're not looking to carve off pieces. So I agree with her on the premise of the application fee. That and the fact that we have also, this is the fourth time I think we've seen Mr. Scheller come in with different schemes for his land. One was for Lot B. The next time he came in were for the two A&R lots that are C and D, which are the ones on the, yes, that one and that one, yes. And those, one has frontage on Hemingway Drive, one has frontage on Brushwood Road. So we've gotten a figure every time he turns in one of those plans, so.
Question?
So just a question I have is that, are you deeding this property then to DCR?
yeah, this property is going to be conveyed. It's
As
not going to
opposed
be
to the
eminent domain.
yeah.
The reason for the eminent domain a couple years ago or last year was that we ran out of time.
Yeah,
And DCR had the funding to acquire, to pay for a friendly eminent domain taking. Was going to lose it at the end of June. The only way to do it quickly was to do it by eminent
yeah.
domain.
No, I'm laughing actually because I have this very similar situation
Oh, okay.
in another town where
Yeah.
I'm representing a property owner who's transferring property for conservation, and we have this June 30th deadline as well because of the grant cycle and all that sort of stuff.
Exactly,
So I'm
yeah.
smiling about the fact that I'm looking at the same kind of thing.
What happened at DCR was that they actually were going to use the funding for something else.
Mm-hmm.
Something went wrong with that. And we just had they, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
and the Schellers were the beneficiaries of the fact that they had unexpected funding come up. So I think it's been a good thing, and I think adding this land is a good thing. There are wetlands here, there's some wetlands here. DCR wants to acquire this property because they're trying to protect the water that flows down into Fowl Meadow.
Yeah.
Yes?
So I think this is great. And I have no objection to the 50% fee reduction, except for the fact that I want to make sure that other people coming in making a non-buildable lot, which we see commonly, are not expecting the same. I think this is a different situation than we usually see. I think this is great for the neighborhood. This is something that the neighborhood has been advocating for, so I'd be happy to support that request.
Yeah, I think the fee is based on the number of buildable lots. This is purportedly, could be a buildable lot, but it's not going to be used for building and development. So it's a little bit unique and narrow, so if you're willing to approve it, that would be great.
Is there anyone here who would like to provide a comment on this application? If so, please come to the table and give us your name and address, please, because we need to have you at the microphone. Okay? Thank you.
My name is Randy Scott. I live at 75 Hemingway Drive in Canton. Our land is also in Milton at the same address. I know the area very well. I've been out of town for about 4 months or so I've been away. Is this for just DCR to?
Yes,
Okay.
that's all this is. We've had some prior informal discussion with the planning board and the Murphys, and Peter Hicks about whether they might want to create a lot on Avenue A. This is not about that. Neither one of them, Peter Hicks is not interested in doing anything now, or ever perhaps, but certainly not now. The Murphys right now have no plans, don't know if they're going to put any forward, but everyone on Avenue A is involved right now with a drainage, broken drainage pipe situation that they're having to get repaired. So that's the focus for the near future, and then we'll see. This has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with the DCR gift, or the DCR conveyance last year, which had a second requirement that this other land be conveyed to them.
Okay.
To be clear, so the red, it says not to buildable lot, so if there was some intention in the future to have that be considered a buildable lot, it would need to come back to the planning board.
I see. In the red?
It's too small.
see.
This by itself isn't
Right in the
buildable because it's
corner
not
there.
big enough.
I know where that
It
is.
could be combined somehow, but that would all be subject to
But
planning
that's off
board
Avenue
approval.
A.
That's off Avenue A, and it's not happening at the present time, and I don't even know if it's going to happen, so,
Okay, so, all right.
Blue property goes to DCR.
Good.
right,
And the red remains with the ownership of the yellow.
that's right.
All righty. So in the future, if something were to pop up, we would come back.
And we would be talking to you, certainly, because you live right next to that property.
That's right, yeah. All right, thank you so much.
Okay, you're welcome, thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to provide comment on this application? No? Are there any more questions from the board? No? Then would someone like to make a motion on this?
I would move that we approve the A&R plan submitted by the Scheller family and agree to waive half the filing fee for the purposes, recognizing that it's being transferred to the conservation purposes held by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and not a building lot.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very
Okay,
much.
thank you.
Thank you.
Denny, please come back up and join us. And now we will take the Pulte Affordable Housing, 199 Church Street discussion. Welcome back.
Yes, thank you. Good to be back. For the record, my name is Reed Bleet, and I'm an employee at Pulte Homes, and we're developing the Milton Woods single-family community off of Unquity Road by the Yulin Rink. And one of the criteria that is in a special permit that had been granted previously by the board was to require 2 affordable units to be built. And about 9 months ago, I was before the board to get some clarification on that. And since then, I've been pursuing, other opportunities for a specific home to be able to convert an existing 2-unit rental duplex to 2 affordable for-sale condominium units. And I guess the good news is, after viewing a couple dozen properties, I finally landed on one that we've actually had an accepted offer on, so we're ready to proceed with the purchase and sale agreement, and the seller would like to close by the end of this month. And, we're willing to do that as long as it meets all the criteria, and that's one of the questions I wanted to ask the board. And I'll get to that in a second. So, as far as the criteria is concerned, we did discuss previously, and it's pretty clearly spelled out in the Section 12, page 11 of the special permit, under the affordable housing section, what the various criteria is. A number of them, I either I'm in the process of checking off or have them checked off now. So, for example, floor plans was a requirement. Since it's an existing building, I put together a little booklet, I can pass this around afterwards, but I put together a little booklet that just has the existing floor plan sketches. So I know it's tiny and hard to see, but I just wanted give you a representation. So we're proceeding on this. I actually have a surveyor who's surveying the lot, and he's going to do a survey plan of the inside, which ultimately we would need in order to convey condominium units anyway. So right now, it's this hand sketch, but it represents the rooms. The site plan, which is another criteria, we've got, again, right now, since it's a Google map, so it locates it, 199 Church Street, and kind of a zoom in. It's customary home, fits right in with the neighborhood. It's a very nice neighborhood. I've spent quite a bit of time there lately. A nice quiet area. The requirement for a site plan, again, we don't have it documented yet, but we're starting on it. The exterior photographs, we've got a number of photographs here. It's a very nice little home. And again, I'm happy to pass this around. The board wants to take a peek, but as you go through the home, part of the criteria was naturally a living room in each. So living room was a criteria, which they each have a living room. Kitchen's a criteria, naturally. They each have a kitchen. Dining room's a criteria. This happens to be the dining room. They each have a dining room. Since it's empty, the pictures are kind of boring, but I'm kind of excited about it because out of the 24 or so homes I've looked at, I think this really fits the bill the best. Anyway, which is why I took the time to print these pictures and just to help convey that. So kitchen, this is the lower level kitchen. There's two current apartments which would be converted into two condominium units. This is the upstairs unit. They have gas heat. Of course, it has sewer, water, has natural gas for heat and hot water. The first floor unit is a hot air, gas forced hot air, and the second floor unit is, that's the dining room on the second floor. The second floor unit has baseboard, gas forced hot water baseboard heat. And there's actually, from the second floor unit, this is the kitchen, the second floor, it has a walk-up, in the back corner here, you can't really see it in the picture, but it has a walk-up stairway to the third floor. Third floor, which is finished, and there's another full bath up there, this is a picture of full bath. It's got a laundry, washer, dryer in there. There's a large bedroom in the front on the third floor. And two other rooms that have skylights on the third floor on the left and right side. We're not calling them bedrooms. They may have been used for that in the past. But we're calling them an office and a family room, a den, under our floor plan because they don't have the egress requirements. So regulatory agreement, spinning through these things rather quickly.
Excuse me, 1 second
Yeah.
before you do that. Are each of those 1,250 square feet?
No,
Okay, so that's what you're going to get to.
That's what I'm gonna
Okay,
get to.
Okay, keep going then.
you can, let me pass this around. That's what I'm gonna get to, right.
Okay.
So, using the property card furnished by the town assessor's office, they have a small sketch of the building down the bottom corner. And they also, as part of the information they have on their card, they have the square footage. And the square footage that they have is 2,288, so 2,288 square feet. And what I was able to do was essentially to measure, and they do have a breakdown as well. Let me get to the right page. So they have a breakdown as part of the information. And I haven't confirmed any of this, but I'm just going by their information. So they have the first floor unit listed as 920 square feet, which would mean the third floor, second and third floor unit, it covers both of those floors, is 1,368 square feet. So if you add those back, together, you get the 2,288. So my conundrum right now, really, that I wanted to get some feel from the board is, would there be an opportunity to proceed with this particular property that, we can make happen over the summer here and have 2 additional affordable units created sometime this fall, once we close and go in and do the rework and things like that, with the understanding that the first floor unit does not quite meet the 1,250 square feet that's mentioned in the special permit criteria, balancing that against the Unit 2 on the second and third floor, which is actually over that criteria. Is that a deal breaker for the board, or is that something that the board thinks that they might have some, some ability to work with us on that so we can move ahead with this particular opportunity?
So that first floor unit has 2 bedrooms?
2 bedrooms, yes.
And is there any opportunity for part of the basement to be added to that first floor unit?
Right, so that's,
Where's the laundry for the first floor?
the laundry for the first floor is in the basement. So I think so.
I mean, you could have a study and a laundry in the basement potentially?
Yeah, so I don't think I didn't print any pictures of the basement, but, the home is consistent with what's in the area. It's about, 1920 vintage, so, it's an older home. But, fortunately, it's in a high and dry area there over in East Milton on Church Street. Very close to East Milton Square, very close to, like, 1 block away at the end of Antwerp, there's a bus stop. So, it's a great location from that perspective, and it's been high and dry. So my point is, it has a fieldstone, granite stone foundation, which is in nice shape, but it's not living space. I don't want to mislead anyone in that regard. The attic is finished, and it's living space, the previous attic area. But the basement, although, the laundry room would be down there, the hookup, washer, dryer, and then again, your furnace, hot water, the normal things you'd have in your basement are down there.
For that unit only?
No, actually, they're down there for both units,
units,
except for the
okay.
washer dryer hookup, because when they finish the 3rd floor,
Yeah,
they moved
they-
their washer dryer up there, but
Yeah.
there's also one from the old days
Right, I heard you
in,
mention
in the
that,
basement
yeah.
as well. So, you kind of have 3 washer dryer hookups if you want to think of it that way, but,
What would you, you're looking at 80% AMI, right, in terms of, so have you calculated what the sale price then would be on an 80% AMI for these 2 units?
225,
For each?
225,000,
For each?
yes.
So if you had a less than 80% on the smaller unit?
Okay, so that criteria is utilizing the DHCD formula.
Right.
Which has a 10% window, if you will, so it's based on 70% median income.
Okay.
Did that answer your question?
Well, I guess.
So it's less than 80% already, I
right.
guess is what I'm trying to say.
Okay, so I guess what I was trying to understand, if the sale price was going to be the same for the 2 units that are this different
No, they
size?
wouldn't be.
No, okay.
Because, if you're selling them as a condo, there's 2 ways you can do a sale price or whatever on the condo. It can be on the square footage, doing it that way, which would be different. It wouldn't be 50/50. And I'd be surprised, usually see a condo for $920 going for, the same price as something that's 2 floors.
Right.
So it would be a different sale price based upon the square footage. But, the advantage of the first floor is that it's just the 1 floor. People like that, as opposed to walking up to 2 and 3, so.
Well, and the reason I was asking, because it, in essence, makes it more affordable in the sense that you have less square footage, right? So the purchase price is going to be less than it would be for the second floor unit. Because one of the things is that we always have these 80% AMI, so I know in sometime, if we're looking for some special consideration here, would we look for in a response back to us, whether we could look at having a different requirement on what the percentage AMI is, since we're.
Oh, selling it for low? Just something less than
I'm
80?
talking about like a trade-off for the fact that it's less than what was required in terms of square footage. I'm just,
Yeah,
throwing
I
out
don't
an
know. I mean, it
idea.
seems to me that it's so hard to do affordable housing in Milton. It's like practically impossible. So the idea that this is already illegal too,
Yes.
which is also unusual,
right.
highly. So that it doesn't require a variance to make 2 units out of it.
Right.
It's already there, is a huge selling point as far as I'm concerned, because, as I said, it's so tough to do. And so if it's already there and, you know, it's already constructed, looks like it's in pretty good condition, we can get 2 affordable units pretty quick, much faster than we're normally going to get them.
And
What's this footage difference? So what you're required and where you're at?
what was the difference?
Yeah, just
So-
the map.
So it's a difference of 330 square feet.
330, okay.
And interestingly enough, half of the basement is 430 square feet.
Right.
So if we could include half of the basement in the first floor unit, that would put us at 1350, over the 1250. But, you know, it's not living space. I just want to be clear about that.
Okay.
So we could hit the number, or actually exceed the number, but there'd be like an asterisk next to that, the basement square footage, if that makes any difference.
And you said in the other unit, you have an excess of 300?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, actually, the excess is 118 square feet on
Oh,
this.
excess of 118, okay.
It's 1368.
All right.
Again, using
This looks nice.
all the town's numbers from the assessor. And like I say, I have a civil engineer who's going to confirm everything.
All right, so the language doesn't say 1,250 square feet of living space, it just says 1,250 square feet.
Okay.
That layout looks like it has all of the requirements in terms of the spaces. It's first floor, lots of windows. That
It
they
says
could-
in a living area of at least 1,250 square feet. In a living area, it does say it.
Okay, sorry, I missed it.
All right, no, that's okay. Good try, though.
Good try.
Well,
It
it's on a
does. I gotta
different-
put my glasses
It's on a different
back on.
line, though.
It was before, yeah, it was earlier, so it snuck in earlier.
Yeah,
All right, well,
I just want to be, you know,
You know, it's good to be transparent up front.
we did hear from you before the difficulty in finding something suitable. And
Yeah, I mean,
and I do think the location is a really, as you said, a very good location for these units. Being able to walk to amenities, being able to, take public transit, from there. So, yes.
No,
good.
sorry,
Okay.
if I ever do that,
No.
just means after you. So sometimes when people aren't looking, like, it's hard to,
Yeah.
I'm definitely not trying to jump in.
Oh, no, that's okay, I finished, yeah.
No, just so I'm clear. So right now, it's 2 rental units that are being rehabbed into 2 condos.
yes. And one thing I didn't mention, but it is important in the urban area, is there is off-street parking. So it does not have a covered garage, but it has a driveway, and it goes down on the, let's see, on the picture would be the left side. Over here, there's a fence, so the driveway runs right down to the backyard. And the backyard has parking for probably 4 vehicles you could park in the back. It's,
Side by side.
you could park 3 in one, and then there's like a turnaround area.
Okay.
So,
Driveway's on the Squantum Road side of the house.
Yep.
yes, right.
Yeah, I know that, huh?
Kind of the uphill side, yep. And that's a nice benefit too. I've looked at a number of them that
Yep, cool.
Yeah, that
took
is a
me like
benefit.
20 turns to get out. There was one on Brook Road, my gosh, I didn't want to back out. So I decided I got to turn around in here. But this is very spacious from that regard, which I think is important for folks too.
Yeah, that's good.
Any other questions or comments? Yes,
My
April?
comment is I have no objection to whatever waiver we can offer for all the reasons that you all discussed. I think this meets the spirit of what we were hoping to achieve.
So Bill, by process-wise, we can waive this requirement for this one unit, right?
Yes, I think it's overwhelming that you've got a bigger one on the top floor. You've got the potential for the basement to go with this unit. And again, because the other unit is so big and because you're also making something that is one floor. So, yes.
Which is good too, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think there's a huge benefit to this being for sale.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Any
In perpetuity for affordable units,
Yeah.
right.
I agree.
Two affordable units, right.
Yeah,
Do you
and
want
as
to
I said,
ask for
it's,
improvements in the basement, or let it go?
Yeah.
It checks
Great.
all the boxes and there's
Yeah.
just one of those boxes is gray, but
So do you agree
this
with,
is here, it's,
right, so do you agree, Denny, we should ask for some improvement in the basement to,
Possibly,
Par-
if there is
partially.
room, if there is room to create a storage area or something.
Right, bec-
I have a 1920s house, and my basement is like pebbles and Bam Bam, and it's all rock. So, but I know there's room for improvement in mine, but I don't know if there's any room for improvement, just even, you know,
I could look at that. I mean, it does have a poured concrete floor,
good.
although, it's not as flat as this
for
table.
storage purposes,
but-
his basement fits the bill.
Yeah.
so
You
for
can store it down.
laundry,
It is-
laundry and storage?
Can store it down. It's not a wet basement, which is nice.
That's awesome.
yeah, I mean, I think that you, sometimes, I mean, in normal circumstances, you would have storage space for both units in the basement.
Right.
And you do have the 2 furnaces in the basement, so you can't turn over the entire thing.
No,
Right.
no,
And
right.
so you're really only talking about adding, not much, with the stairs and everything. I think it would be just better to just give this straight, waiver of the unit as it is on the first floor without having to sort of decide you're going to deed over part of the basement. I think
Okay.
that should be more open to everybody to be able to get to their furnaces and get to the storage and, keep garbage in there. I don't think you're going to, as you say, I don't think it's, I know what mine looks like, and mine's in the neighborhood. It's 1890. I only go down there with,
So if that's a shared, if that's a shared basement, though, how does that work for the laundry if it's common space to the 2 units? It's going to be common
It
for
would be
both
common
units.
area
Yeah, okay.
if it weren't deeded and, my,
Side by side.
Side by side in the basement, okay. So as
well,
long
yeah,
as,
one, just to be clear though, the first floor unit has the washer dryer hookup in the basement.
right,
yeah,
And the second floor unit has the washer dryer hookup on the
third
third floor.
floor.
right, okay.
So there's no conflict between those two.
Right, so I guess I would like to make sure that the first floor unit wouldn't have to try and find laundry in their first floor, unless they wanted to. In other words.
Oh, no, you would have an exclusive use easement.
Yeah.
I mean, it's easy enough to draft in the condo docs. You just say,
yeah.
and when you do the plans, you just do this little drawing that says, okay, here's the storage area, or whatever, for unit 1. Or here's the storage area for unit 2. Here's an exclusive area for the laundry for unit 1.
Okay.
And, common access to get to the heaters and stuff. Yeah, we do it all.
Absolutely, yeah.
All right.
I've done it a bazillion times.
Super. Sounds
So,
good.
all right, so is there, Rich, do you have any,
I like it.
you like it? Okay, so with that, I guess then we'll take a motion. Do we want to put it all on Kathleen the
Yeah,
first?
I know.
time?
Kathleen's killing it. I'm
She
good.
jumped right in that first.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, whew, I didn't know what
Brian
we were
used
going
to
to
be our motion giver.
I know, I watched this, I saw that.
Yes, she is, yeah.
Yeah, no pressure.
But he sat in this.
Oh, that's
I was stumbling. Well, you can have the chair if you want.
I move that the board vote to waive the requirement for a living area of at least 1,250 square feet in each of the units, to permit the 920 square feet for the first floor unit, plus or minus, and 368 square feet for the second and third.
For the property at 199 Church Street.
199 Church Street.
A second.
So just one use.
Well,
I
plus or
think you said
minus.
368, it's 1,368.
1368, yeah.
Yeah, just to clarify.
Plus or minus, depending upon the actual result of the final unit plans.
Thank you.
A second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great.
Great, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank
Thank you.
Yes.
2 more
Bill?
affordable units, great.
That's true.
Oh, sorry. No?
No, not quite. Yes, we're getting those units, but the process for keeping them as affordable units So the lottery, the sale is all something that we need to see once you get the house and you have your lawyers work through what that process is, so that we can,
Yes, understood.
you're going to have a lottery, you're going to have an
Yes.
agent. You're going to come back and give us what the particulars are with that agent and that lottery system.
Right, absolutely.
That's,
I can leave you a draft. I have a draft of the lottery program. It's just a draft.
that's fine. Do we
And-
have
and-
who?
I'm sorry?
Do we have who?
Who,
Who's going to do it for you?
MCO Associates, I can send you their contact information. Maureen O'Hagan,
Oh, yeah.
and this is the regulatory agreement.
Cool.
And again, it's just drafts, they haven't been
Yes.
vetted, they haven't gone to
And
DHCD.
you
I
did
just
the
wa-
first part tonight. I
All of
didn't
the-
want you to get away before I had the point to say, yeah, that's one, his too. Well, good.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you.
So,
Yeah, we know we need to do all the paperwork.
Yes.
Right.
The deed rider and the
Right.
restriction, all of that, yes.
I was just going to say, just for the board who may not be, some members who may not be familiar, typically that part of it's been handled at the staff level, not coming back to the board. So unless there's a request from the board to see these documents, otherwise, staff typically handles it. Okay? Good? You want
I'd
to see
probably
them?
read them.
Just
Sure,
Jill can
that'd be
send them to
great.
Kathleen, yeah. Great.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Reed.
Thank you all very much. I appreciate your cooperation, your understanding, and your patience.
I appreciate the hard work you had to go through to find somewhere.
And will you be back in 2 weeks? Or will
no,
this be
no,
someone
no.
else? Okay.
I'll do it for
Okay.
Mark.
Oh, okay.
But while Reed is here, next time we're going to take and look at the requested bond surety reduction that Pulte has requested. Per the special permit, in order to lower the, I think it's number 35 of the special permit, they need to come back to the town, to the board, to request permission to lower that amount. And the amounts in this paper here are numbers that were put together by originally the engineer for Pulte, and they were reviewed by John Thompson and Chase Berkeley. They both agreed to it, with the one caveat that the town requested a larger number in the contingency. Pulte has agreed. That's what's in here. That's what's signed. Next time, you'll take and vote your permission to do the reduction and one more piece of work for that project. We're dropping the surety bond from 2.4 million to just under 500,000.
Okay,
So
so
we'll
we'll
vote
be
on that
discussing that in our next meeting.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Madam Chairman, can I have one more minute?
Of course.
So with that in mind, and I just wanted to give the board a quick, like, 1-minute update on the status of construction.
Sure.
Since next time you'll be talking about this. So hopefully you can see this. I know it's kind of small. But out here is Unquity Road. This is a little marketing plan that our sales folks use. Get a little closer, will that help? So out here is Unquity Road, so you come in this way, and then here's the end, the cul-de-sac. And right now, the pest house, which is a requirement of the special permit also to be relocated, that is located right around here at the end of the cul-de-sac, and it's if anyone's been up there recently, you can see it's jacked up. So we're getting ready to move it and put it on its new permanent foundation, which has been poured and backfilled now. It's over on the 4-acre parcel next to the other older homes there. And that will be happening very soon. They'll be moving over. The basement's done and it's poured and it's all in place. So the pest house will be moving over. And then it has to be, hooked up. There's more work to do, but that's a big step that we've been striving to get done. So that's moving forward. The other couple of items on home activity, these are the lot numbers here, 23 lots altogether. 1 is sold and occupied, 3 is sold and occupied, and 22 over here is sold and occupied. And then across from 22, there's a home that's ready to close in June, lot 4. So basically, there's 4 homes that are up and either occupied or very nearly ready to be occupied. In addition to that, the first lot on the right as you drive in, which is 23 on our numbering system, That foundation is up and there's a home under construction. It's, wood, walls are going up right now, first floor walls. So that's moving forward. And then up on 20, there's a foundation going in. 19, 20, and 21 are all under a purchase and sale agreement. So they've been contracted, and we're in the process of beginning construction on those 3. So those should all come to fruition and close this year. That's our goal, along with some others that, haven't been identified yet. So, that's just a quick update. As far as the road and all of the bonded components, those get captured in the detail of the bonding cost analysis, which Bill was mentioning, that's been looked over by the engineering department as well. So that's kind of where we are, and things are moving ahead, and we're very, pleased and excited about how things are going.
Well, we just had town meeting on Monday and had discussions about a difficult budget year. So we'll welcome the new real estate taxes
Yeah,
coming from these
absolutely.
new homes.
Yeah, it helps out for all of us, so thanks again.
All right, thank
And if
you.
there's ever any questions or anything, please, feel free to reach out, either directly or through staff or Bill.
Okay, great.
I did have a question.
Sure.
It's not on the agenda, so I didn't want to bring it up, but maybe your colleague could be prepared to answer for it. If I could point out an area on your map.
Sure.
So,
Denny, do you mind grabbing the microphone?
oh, sorry.
Oh, you have
Oh,
yours,
do
I'm
I have
sorry.
mine?
You have yours
Okay.
on, right.
So I
sorry.
don't know. I think this area, I'm looking for the area where the animal shelter is. Is the animal shelter?
Yes.
Roughly in here?
It's right up in here.
Yeah. So up here, there's a huge pile. I don't know if that's where you were storing some dirt or,
Yep.
like, there's a huge, I was concerned about these trees
Oh,
along that humongous pile of dirt. I'm worried about the root system there.
All those trees are intended to remain, to stay.
Yeah,
So-
because the dirt is kind of within the drip line.
Oh, we
So-
can take a look at that.
Yeah, if
sure.
you could take a look at that, and maybe your colleague could talk with us about it next time. And then, Bill had
Stone wall
mentioned,
going in there too.
yeah, Bill had mentioned, I was concerned about some trees where some equipment was. I could send you a picture.
Right.
But you-
They
Bill had-
move that stuff out of there,
Yeah,
but most of those are their trees anyways. They're not,
they were never marked for protection or preservation or anything.
no, they're coming down because the wall is going right through that area.
Okay. And then the other area, just because, prior to approval of things, we want to make sure we have things in good condition.
I want to get on camera.
Oh, okay.
So people
Yeah.
can see what you're talking about.
Sorry. Never see where I'm talking. Is that,
I know what you're talking
we're
about,
talking
yeah.
about, it's that 30-foot buffer zone that we ended up having, a berm ended up getting built in it next to the Mulligan stone wall. We had public meetings where we were told by, was it Mark Mancola? It's going to be a 30-foot, it's going to be 30 feet away from the stone wall, and it's within 10 feet. The berm is within 10 feet of the wall. So I just wanted to prepare you for those questions for next time. I don't expect an answer right here, but these were things that I was a little bit concerned with.
Okay, fair enough. Thanks for letting me
And
know.
it also, my concern was the trees were not to be cleared, the vegetation was not to be cleared for 30 feet, and it's right up to the stone wall, it's all cleared. The
Okay,
30 feet we were concerned with was cleared.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning it. I will
Sure.
look into it.
Would you like me to send you the pictures? I mean, I'm sure you know where it is, but,
Yeah, I do know what you're speaking
okay,
about, yeah.
okay, so you
Yeah,
know what I'm
you don't-
talking
You
about.
don't need to send me pictures.
Okay, thank you.
All right,
Well, I
thanks.
appreciate it.
Again, thank you very much.
Okay, again, just in the interest, in case anyone's here, I'm going to take citizen speak next. Is there anyone here who would like to come to the board for citizen speak? Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Julie Kramer. I live at 58 Frothingham Street here in Milton. I am also the chairperson for the Affordable Housing Trust Committee here in Milton. And while I am very, very happy to hear that 2 units are now entering our subsidized housing inventory, which is very important, I am really upset that you have allowed them to have a reduced square footage. This amounts to what could be considered more livable space for the poor of Milton. They are building homes for the wealthy of Milton. They are builders. They could build onto this property, right? They could add the square footage. They could find other places to locate these units. This is upsetting for me to hear, that we have laid down the law, right? We have included this in their permit, and now we have stepped back from our obligations. It is difficult to build affordable homes in Milton, we all know that. But it's not up to us, right? This is in their permit. It's their responsibility to build these units. So, they could build $1 million homes. They're required to build 1,200 square, bring 1,200 square feet to the affordable housing SHI units, and they can't seem to do that. I just hope this doesn't happen in the future. We are going to have some more affordable homes here built, we hope. I hope folks will think about that and think about what it's like to live in 980 square feet. It's not that easy. And if you're going to own that home and you're going to, be a part of the community and you're going to raise your family here, there's a reason why the square footage was given in the permit, because that's an ample-sized home. It just bothers me that we have decided to take a step back from the permit. Have they built less homes? Have they sold homes for less than they had pro forma'd or had they expected to? I promise you they haven't. This amounts to a very, very drop in the bucket of their profits. And we are now saying, sure, make it smaller. Are we asking them to make the homes they're building smaller? No. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for doing the work that you do on the Affordable Housing Committee. It's a really important effort, and I do appreciate your feedback. And I wish we had done citizen speak in opposite order, because I think your points are very good. And thank you for...
And I thought that we were doing citizen speak, because the way the agenda reads,
Yeah.
we were supposed to do citizen speak.
Yeah, I do regret that. That was a mistake on my part, too. Not just the chair. We were trying to get the public heard from, and we missed.
Indeed.
I would like to, I appreciate Julie's comments, and obviously I work with affordable housing all over the place. So I don't want people to think that I just kind of jumped on this and said, oh yeah, great, waive whatever. I know for a fact that it is really, really hard to do affordable housing anywhere. And to get 2 units that we can get pretty quickly, only one of which is slightly smaller than what the requirement is. I also know from my real estate practice that you can sell an 800 square foot condo in South Boston for almost $1 million. So living in 920 square feet is not impossible. And I like the idea. One of the things that we've tried to say through the master plan and everything else is that we want to have housing choice, more flexibility, that you're not living in a 2,000, 2,500 or bazillion square foot house that Pulte has, that this is an opportunity for an affordable family to live in a neighborhood that I live in and I know is great. Some of the things that some of the projects that we've looked here for affordable housing have been, placed in somewhere where you've got to, get a car to get a quart of milk. This is a terrific location. I know that they've looked around because I know that it's been hard for them to find a place. So from my perspective, thinking about an affordable buyer, I think it's a great neighborhood, it's a great location, it's near a bus, you can get to Ashmont or Quincy without having to have a car, you can walk and get, groceries, you can walk all over the place. So it's a good location, and so because of that, I'm willing to say, okay, fine, provide a unit that's less than 1,200 square feet, because the plus side is so great. But I don't want you to think I just kind of went, oh yeah, right, whatever.
Rich?
Yeah, just a comment, and I don't want to repeat much of what you said, but for those reasons, so I've spent the majority of my life right there on Church Street as well, and that neighborhood is just booming with young families, and the house prices are going crazy, and so I'll be honest with you, what excited me beyond what was just stated is the fact that we can turn some affordable housing units in that area with all the amenities of that's what kind of sold me on the project.
I completely agree. I love the location. I completely agree. We need affordable housing, and this is the way to do it.
Yeah.
What I don't agree with is the fact that it's not on us to build a smaller unit. It's on them to build the unit size that's in the permit. And if the permit said it has to be here, it has to be there, and he was asking for changes to that, that's a whole nother thing, and I get it. I'm more than excited that we're bringing 2 units to a very, very user-friendly, walkable, beautiful neighborhood. Not that every neighborhood in Milton isn't beautiful, because it is, but
But they're not all walkable.
I'm extremely excited, but I'm not excited that we retreated from a requirement of a group that's making money. It's not like, oh, woe is us. We've only sold 5 lots. It's the fact that this is a requirement in their permit. And I don't doubt that it's a beautiful home. I don't doubt that someone can live in 980 square feet. What I'm upset about is that we're supposed to be standing firm on affordable housing, and we're not. We're retreating just slightly. And when I saw the permit and I saw the size of the homes that they had promised to deliver, I was excited, because they agreed to bring 2 units at that size square footage. Now, it doesn't say they had to be single family, it doesn't say, but it did say that they had to be 1,200 square feet. And, that just, I don't know. I wish things were a little different. I wish you would have said, can't you build on? I wish
have
you
to
would
get
have
a
said,
variance.
let's find another. They'd have to get a variance.
They would.
I got a variance, right, just recently?
But that
You
would
can get a
slow down the
variance.
delivery of the
right?
units.
Yeah.
So
It
can I
would
make a-
slow down the delivery of the units?
Yeah, if you have to go through another permitting process before you can start any construction.
And you think that going through a lottery isn't, that's a long
that's a
process.
given no matter what
Right,
happens.
and that's a
Yeah.
long process, so they'd have time.
But I'm saying then we're adding on another regulatory approval. So that will ultimately delay the delivery of the units, because they wouldn't be able to start construction, which hopefully it sounds like they're going to do imminently once they close.
So I guess what.
Can I just make another point?
Sure.
So we had another project recently at Walcott Woods where we had some off-site affordable units, and I don't believe we included any minimum square footage in those,
I think that's correct.
which I personally think, given this conversation, is probably the best way to go, because it gives us a little bit more flexibility. And it doesn't appear then that we're backing off anything. I think that, given this experience, there could be smaller units that are more desirable for other reasons than other larger units. My preference would be to pick this unit for all the reasons that everybody described, with all of the natural amenities near it and the proximity to transit, et cetera, over a 1,250 square foot unit out in the middle of the woods. So I think that in the future, we should just keep this in mind when we're doing these types of requirements in our permits.
And accept my apologies, please, for taking citizen speak after that discussion. It was an oversight. And I'm happy to have people raise their hand because we've taken people's comments at other times rather than citizen speak, so we don't hold truly to that all the time. So if you come back to us. And then the other thing I'd like to say is as we continue to think about zoning and as others beginning to think more about how to do, to reach some of the goals for more affordable housing and more variety in our housing stock, which could make it affordable just by size, is if the Affordable Housing Trust would like to provide any information to the planning board or to the master plan implementation committee or to the housing committee that Rich sits on, that would be a great place because we're all trying to reach some of the same goals, and we appreciate some of your feedback. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
And we do appreciate you coming out tonight, so thank you.
Okay. So let's go back to the top. Our next meeting dates are May 23rd and June 13th. Does anybody have flexibility with June 13th in a change of that date?
I'm sorry, say the date again?
June 13th?
Did you have a date in mind? I could do the 12th.
Okay, does the 12th work
Yes.
for others?
Yep.
I could do the 12th.
Okay, so let's change that to the 12th. Minutes. I have some edits to the minutes that I think probably are worthy of people having time to review. So I just sent them late today to Lauren and Bill. So if you are all amenable, I'd like to defer that to the 23rd.
Yep,
Is that okay?
that's fine with me.
Everyone? Okay. So that brings us to voting in the chair and secretary. So thank you for allowing me to be the chair for the past year with the mistakes of forgetting citizen speak in the right times.
It's been a rocky year.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to say thank you or.
Another year?
How about a motion to make Cheryl the chairman for another year?
Second.
All right.
I was going to nominate April.
Oh,
We do traditionally rotate chairs. So I was thinking April might be willing, possibly, to be our chair.
I would be willing. Cheryl, are you interested in maintaining this position?
Well, I'm interested in maintaining it, but I don't need to have a lock on it. So, I mean, we have a motion and a second, so I guess we can vote that one first. And then, any
Yeah,
further
I mean,
discussion
I can
on
just,
it?
yeah, I can discuss. I mean, I was only been on a year, so I've got to see one. And I value all the work that you've done behind the scenes, working with staff and Bill. I think you work well with the team over here. And so, I mean, and I know you got to work with other boards and stuff like that, so that's why I was kind of hoping you go again, but, you know, hear from everybody else.
well, I mean, as I said, I don't have a lot of experience, obviously.
Yeah, nor I, so that's why I wouldn't be interested.
But I've watched, and of course, I obviously no objection
Yeah, no.
to your qualifications either. So, but I was just, from my own perspective, was thinking, oh, well, it would be great to have somebody who's had the job while I'm sitting here new, to be working with somebody that had some experience as the job. But that's only my opinion.
I don't actually have a huge burning desire to be chair, but I was thinking if we were going to rotate, I didn't know what your plans were with respect to the master plan, if you wanted to continue that. I know that's also time consuming and if you even wanted to be chair. So whatever everybody thinks is fine with me.
I've only been through one of these votes before, but it was kind of nice. We wrote them on a piece of paper and put it in.
Secret
as
ballot?
opposed-
Oh,
yeah,
you did
as
secret
opposed
ballot?
to-
Ooh.
Yeah, and then I think we let somebody from staff, I don't know who, would be our little game show host.
All right,
and read them.
that's, want to do that?
I mean, we can, but I mean, I'm fine with you being chair if that's what you want to do. I mean, I don't, thank you, Denny, for your vote of confidence. But it sounds like there's already a majority vote, so honestly, I don't know if we need to.
Well, all right, so if we do think about some of the other committees, what are
I really
people's-
want to stay on the capital planning committee.
Okay, and would you want to continue to be secretary?
What, nobody else
I don't
wants to be
want-
responsible for the minutes?
Not it?
I mean, that's.
Well, I mean, if, I
Do you
would,
want to be secretary?
I would be happy to be secretary.
I mean, what do we have for committees that are, can we merge this conversation with the committee
That's what I'm
conversation?
saying, so if somebody else wanted to take, master plan, for example, or,
I like the
Rick, you
housing.
like
I really
housing,
like
right?
Yeah, I think we're just getting going.
right,
by the-
so
I
that's a
wouldn't-
fairly new committee, which Rich has
Mm-hmm.
been, what, 6 months, maybe?
Yep.
The other thing I just,
Capital planning committee is something that I do for a living, so I'm really interested, but it's also sort of something that every year you're building a multi-year capital plan.
Right.
And this, I think, is my third year, and I really, really like it, and I feel like I'm adding value, and I would really like to stay on it.
Yeah, I remember when I was on the warrant committee, we
And
always
they
had
meet
the
at
same person year after
7:15
year. 'cause-
a.m., so I don't think anybody else wants it.
Yeah. What time?
7:15 a.m. on Wednesdays,
Oh, yeah,
and I
no.
bring my two, most of the time, my 3 children sit in the audience.
That's awesome. They must enjoy it.
Oh, they love it.
so the other thing that I would like to throw out is I think we could think about some working groups to tackle certain things, so that kind of like spread some, where we're looking at maybe rules and regs changes
Yeah.
and maybe zoning. One of the reasons I'm interested in remaining as chair has to do with some of the zoning work. I feel like would like to see those things through. So Milton Village and the beginning of the East Milton. Having served on the master plan committee itself for 2 years and the implementation committee, for 3 years, and now planning board heading into my 5th year. I'm sorry, do you want to add?
No,
to
you just
okay.
remind me of something.
That this board has, I think, committed, and we'll talk about it later in the agenda, to, we did receive the funding at town meeting to do some of this planning work. And so, anyway, that's just a sort of bigger picture of distribution of sort of tasks, I guess, if you will.
So can I make a comment about that? So we do usually rotate. I mean, that's how it's always been since I've been on the board. But I also have taken a very rough vote, personally, against a very good friend of mine who was running for chair, because the other person who was running for chair, who has also become a very good friend, was in his last year of his term. And I feel like if it's the last year of your term, that you should have an opportunity to, if you want to be chair, to kind of exercise that responsibility to show the voters what you're about, so that as you run into your next election cycle, people have the opportunity to know you to the greatest extent, if that's what you want to do. So I forgot that this is the last year of your,
My 5-year term?
yeah,
Yeah.
Oh, lucky you.
Well, then that would mean next year is your last year.
if you want to be chair.
No, if you want to be chair next year.
I know, I'm saying, this is a big if, based on if the person wants to be chair and if they want to run again.
That's funny.
No, I mean, so Denny, I really appreciate your nomination, but I think in light of the conversation, that we should let Cheryl remain chair if you're comfortable with it.
I am comfortable. I was imposing on you, so.
Not that I was not going to not to make that
Oh, no.
insinuation, but you know what I mean. Well, let's avoid a vote.
Okay,
All right,
thank you.
so I think we do have to have a vote,
Yeah.
though. Okay.
Oh, yeah, no, it's
So,
true.
I would like
Still-
to nominate Denny as secretary.
okay, so we'll do them jointly then. I'll second that.
So we have a motion for Cheryl as chair and Denny as secretary?
We do.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right,
Can we make a motion that Kathleen is our motion maker?
I like that. I like that.
Hey, you're doing
It's
very
only
well.
because I like
You
to,
can sit here.
I like to have things, I like to have things move along.
Yes, so I
So-
We appreciate that. So, now on these committees, so we've heard that April really would like to stay on the capital planning committees. Anybody else want to fight her for that?
No.
Okay.
An arm wrestle. There's few things I feel as strongly.
And does anybody want to fight Rich on the housing committee?
No.
No? Okay. Now, I should say that anybody's welcome to go to these committee meetings. I've attended the housing committee a few times, so,
Yeah.
you know, Kathleen, I know with your housing background,
Yeah.
you know, they would welcome your feedback. They meet in the mornings, and
Usually-
Lauren can put you on the
Yeah.
the emails, invites, so you're aware of them.
That's right. Monday morning.
Just let me know.
Okay.
The more the merrier.
Now, Brian served on the Milton Village Central Ave Revitalization Committee. That committee only meets when there's something kind of pending. And he did volunteer, or was coerced into volunteering to being on the Traffic Impact Mitigation Committee. He found that the time that it meets was difficult, and so I reached out to a couple others who also couldn't do it. So it was suggested to me by the chair, or actually by Mike Zulis, I think, of that, or the chair of that committee, to appoint Bill to it. But if there's anybody else here who would like that,
When do they meet?
7 o'clock every other Thursday.
In the morning.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
and there was no flexibility in changing the
Sounds like
time
it's
when
all
I was asking around.
You know why? It's because same thing for capital planning, we meet on Wednesdays at 7:15,
Yeah.
because
Everybody
we're
has to work.
representatives
Right.
of all different boards that meet all different nights of the week,
Yeah.
and now all
And
different
I-
mornings of the week, because we're all on the same committees. So it's like you get locked into this time, and you either can make it or you can't make it. I'm very, very interested in traffic committee, but I definitely cannot drag my kids to meetings 2 mornings in a row.
Yeah,
Is that led by Jeff Mullen?
Yes.
Is that the committee? Yeah, that's a cool
it's a
committee.
one-year committee right now, so it ends at the end of this year, but they may choose, I guess, to think about going beyond it. But again, if you want to be on their list to
Yes,
get.
I do.
Okay. So you've made that note, Bill,
And I'm
right?
happy to serve on the Central Ave committee. I know it's a very low lift,
Okay,
but this is my neighborhood. At least I consider it my neighborhood, and I'm very interested in what goes on there. So if we need somebody, I'll make that happen, since they vote once a year. I mean, they meet once a year or less.
And if you're stuck, I can back you up. I could
Perfect.
go. I would like to, I love my wireless telecommunications committee.
okay, so you'd like to be back there?
I'll be back there, and then I can play backup to,
So on the Master Plan Implementation Committee, it's, we're about to wrap up, we hope, or we think, and pass on the Milton Village zoning, wrap up in terms of that committee's doing the work, for the planning board to consider doing the work. And then we've been talking about some new initiatives which relate to what we're calling civic center planning. We're trying to follow up on the master plan recommendation. There's no like town center. So the idea was we have most of our civic assets like right around here. So to start to think about that, especially because the fire station building committee is working on planning the new fire station. So Tabor Keeley, MPIC member, and I are attending a meeting tomorrow morning to talk about how they can engage with the committee on the planning. So that's just getting started in terms of master plan work. And then there's a discussion about looking into a design review committee and about looking at housing initiatives. Am I missing something else? And the committee was interested in also being involved, at least at some level, in East Milton in terms of planning process. So I feel like it's an okay, a reasonable time to think about if somebody else was interested in that, if Kathleen, since you don't have an assignment, or if
Yeah.
you'd rather work on bylaws, and I know I'm kind of hoping you want to work on our rules and regs, actually, and you know what we can do in terms of process improvement and our special, like to get things done.
Right.
You know, like some of our things haven't been looked at in a really, really long time.
Well, yeah,
And-
I mean, for example, I mean, I think our statement on the zoning board says that it has to have like a surveyor and an architect and, you know, it's like a bunch of lawyers, so none of it complies, so.
So there's that's actually, we haven't talked about maybe
Yeah.
even a new committee, that's not others, but you're welcome to take on master plan, you're welcome to take on a new committee.
We also have the bylaw review committee is now going to be looking at zoning, which I
Right.
think is great. So I don't know if there's a role for a member to participate in that.
As your first meeting, you just learned a valuable lesson why we all picked ones way before. You just,
Oh, I know.
Get you heavy lift ones.
Well, I mean, as I said, I've been complaining about the fact that we don't have a zoning bylaw that, is
Usable.
Current.
usable. I mean, it's ridiculous.
The part that really bugs me is that there's no spreadsheet that shows you uses and,
Right.
like every other. sign.
Exactly.
Or even a dimensional table.
Yes, that's what I mean. Like, it's
Definitions,
impossible.
how about definitions?
And, I mean, I know that, we've had issues that have come before us in the ZBA in my formal capacity at that, where, people were like, well, how do we understand how this works? I mean, and so we're all kind of pulling out, copies of the zoning bylaw with like markups on it as to where it may have changed since 2002. So this is just,
Well, this is unofficial, you got our unofficial
Yeah, yeah.
version, right? But that's not even current with, yes, Bill?
It's official through, I think it's last year's town meeting. If you were to go to the clerk now and ask for an official copy, what she'll give you is one that goes through, I think it's 2009, and then she'll give you another set of documents that are all of the articles. And she'll stamp and attest to each one of those articles as they relate to what those zoning bylaws are.
which is ridiculous.
I find
It's terrible she has to go through that.
I know.
Well,
I mean,
it's terrible to
I
try
put
and
it together
work
so
with
that
it.
Yeah.
I put it together in '09, I put it together again in 12, I did it again in 14, and I would keep turning these in, but the clerks didn't want to accept it because they didn't know what happened before '07. Neither did I. So it is what it is, and.
But then we have to
their point-
rely on you transcribing too, which,
And
and there can be
that's-
errors in that, and there
that's-
was on the
Yeah.
Great Estates PUD.
But that's why the clerks won't sign off on it.
Yeah,
And we get to the point that we have this, the official unofficial version, which is what, when I have a discussion with John Flynn, this is the one that I use. If we're talking about doing something that just happened within the last 2 years, we'll go back and we'll get that letter from the clerk's office to make sure that each one of our articles in here does get updated.
but it is definitely confusing,
It's
and we
very-
had it as recent, a lot of
But
confusion
that's
as
why this
recently
board
as this
spent
Great Estates one.
$10,000
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
general code. And we're still waiting on general code.
Well, there are a lot of issues with it in terms of some of the things that we were just describing. That's a total reorg of it, which, if we all decide we want to take on, it would be some work, but I think it's long overdue.
I got the impression that that's something that the bylaw committee is going to.
They're codifying it. My understanding is they're codifying it, but they're not really changing it's the way, they're not adding a definition section and putting tables in and things like that, are they?
No, what's there is what's there.
Yeah, it's going to come back to us. So that is definitely something, April, you mentioned that committee.
Yeah.
They said, when Peter Mullen was here, that we were going to be getting it to review.
Yeah.
So that would be something great, Kathleen, if you could review that and if you're
I
willing.
feel bad she just got here.
No, but she was expressed an interest in this to me when I talked to her.
Okay. No, it's
But I got the impressions from Peter that they weren't just going to give us, like a tape. They were going to kind of offer recommendations too on improvements. Am I incorrect?
That
Beyond
wasn't
just-
clear to me,
Okay.
but you may be correct. I just I'm not sure.
Hope so. I got
Yeah.
excited about it.
Yeah,
Peter's
Yes.
excellence.
yeah. Bill?
The bylaws that you have now in the unofficial version are the ones that when we took all the special permits and put them in an annex in the back of the book. It's in an appendix
Right.
in the back.
Right.
So it breaks down each one of the special permits.
But one of the problems that we had was, in looking at this great estates, was definition of story, definition of height, and they're different in different parts of the bylaw. That's not the case in most zoning bylaws, and that's a real problem. I
Well, and
think,
the other thing is the zoning board, as I know, because we have to do a variance constantly on our height
Yeah.
restrictions.
So this is where your
We're
experience
in
would be
there.
fabulous.
All the time.
Right.
Because you have to measure it from certain places, and the house has been there, and they're all just trying to add like a bathroom on the back, and, there's an issue with the way we define height.
And
So,
we've tinkered with that a couple of times as, changing the 4 feet to 6
Yeah, we
feet or
have.
something and some
Yeah.
other things. But and did you work much with this idea that you could do special permit instead of variance, this more recent change?
no, we haven't had that come, we know that, I thought it was a great idea, because the issue about the difference between a special permit and a variance in the law is significant, in that you're not supposed to be giving variances.
Right.
There's supposed to be, hardship and all kinds of stuff. And, seriously, I've said to other people in other situations that, we give variances here like candy. As long as there's no butter that's going to complain, and you've made the case that, you have a situation where you really need an extra bathroom or something like that, we're like, yeah, okay, fine. And it's just,
And honestly, it's the right decision,
well,
given the
yeah.
options.
Yeah,
We
but-
want people to invest in their properties and not just tear them down and try
Yeah.
to build something new.
Yeah, no, I think that's the case.
Yeah.
So that's why we give them, but it's sad that you're having to go through a variance situation when you could
Right.
do a special permit. But we haven't had too many
One yet,
applications
okay.
on that new bylaw.
Another issue that we have heard, though, is that for the point that you said that our bylaw says different things in different sections, it does create a challenge for enforcement.
True.
Yeah. Yeah,
Because they have to go and look,
Yeah.
okay, which one is this permitted under?
Right.
And which is kind of a crazy system.
yeah. I think that makes it tough.
So, we do have here, and the reason we're kind of jumping a little bit is just to get an
Yeah.
idea of what other things we might want to consider in terms of you thinking about, Kathleen, what you have more interested in helping out with. So if you want to, again, we'll talk about these a little bit, and then we can come back to whether you'd have any interest in the traffic or in the master plan. The zoning articles, we've have a few that have kind of lingered, when they get back to, sent back to the planning board, or things we've discussed and then haven't yet moved forward on, we keep this kind of backlog list, which you have in your packet, I think,
Yeah.
from tonight. So that's something for us to talk about. And then we just were talking about zoning, but there's also the rules and regs. And the rules and regs, some of it having to do with what we grant waivers for fairly frequently, and some of it more administrative in terms of requiring drawings to be submitted on linen.
There you go. Great. You can't even get that anymore.
Yeah, that's so, and then some things we've talked about also working with the DPW on stormwater, more low-impact design. And a lot of this has to do with our discussions about, saving trees, how wide does
Yeah.
a road really need to be?
Well,
How much
we haven't
infrastructure
updated-
underground?
Yeah, we haven't updated our rules and regs on subdivision roads at all. I
No,
mean, because there'd been all this discussion, I know, from the things that I do, with the Land Trust Coalition and other kinds of things about, more green designs, that discussion you guys have had about whether you're gonna be putting granite curbing or you do something else, there's all sorts of discussion. And lots of towns have, this requirement that, even a subdivision road needs to be, 100,000 feet wide. You don't need that.
Right.
And so, there's all this sort of green design that's going into subdivisions. And I don't know that we've changed the rules and regulations to kind of reflect something newer than
We haven't.
1950.
But
And
that's why this board grants so many waivers to get to a private way,
Yeah.
because there is in the rules and regs a typical public road. Typical public right-of-way is 50 feet,
Yeah,
and there's 20 feet of pavement on each lane.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
and then you've got 4.5 feet of sidewalk on both sides.
Yeah.
You've got sidewalks with certain pitches, and those pitches don't line, the slope doesn't line up with the ADA compliant curbings.
Right, right.
So that throws all that out of whack.
Yeah.
I've had this discussion, and here's the one, when I gave it to John Thompson the other day, he came back and all the pencil marks are things that
You have it in your packet, too.
Yep.
he would like to see. I mean, we have curbing on one side, granite curbing on one side, we've got Cape Cod berm on the
Yeah.
other, since there are more places with Cape Cod berm than there are with curb. He also knocked down the road size from, what's that, 14 something?
Yeah,
down
to 11 and 5, yeah.
But even that,
Even that's
you know,
wide.
23
So what's-
feet of pavement, that's a lot of
So
pavement.
what's
Yeah.
the next step? Because one of the things that is.
We want to narrow it
But
down.
one of the things that bothers me is that because we don't have that updated, we seem like which we are, we're giving lots of waivers, which angers the neighbors, because we're looking like we're doing something we shouldn't be doing.
That's
And-
why we
And it
want
also
to
makes
look
it
at
hard for the applicants to know what we
Yeah.
want.
Yeah.
But one of the
Yeah,
next
because you
steps.
never know, and,
We don't know what the heck we want.
Right.
but
One of the next steps
also-
to this is that the town is going to be redoing its stormwater bylaws. When it starts talking about stormwater bylaws, this kind of development process fits into those stormwater bylaws. How much pavement do you really want to put out there? Where are you going to put your stormwater? Are you putting it into a pipe and just taking it away, or are you gonna make it stay on site? You stay on site, now you're tearing up more space. Eventually, it will be covered over.
But the roadway width and the stormwater is part of a larger conversation too, because what
Yeah.
about bike lanes? If you go narrower, where do you have the bike lane? So, you know, that idea or the
part of
request
the road.
for the, it doesn't have to be, but these, you know,
And I think your shared bike lanes are totally appropriate in some locations.
Yeah, and the other thing is, I mean, if you're not talking about lots of these times, you're not talking about a public way.
Right.
You know, it's not going to be a road that's going to be accepted by the town at some stage in the game. So you're not really be putting
Right.
bike lanes in there anyway. I mean, if you're thinking about what you're putting in Walcott Woods, or you're putting in, not that you get that many subdivisions anymore, but if we have these requirements, they're based upon what was done, you know, when Robert Moses was telling us, oh, we should pave over the entire planet. Well, then, you know, we need to kind of move those along, I think.
so I think what you're saying, Bill, is we need to get the rules and regs coordinated with the new stormwater. And I'd say we need to coordinate it with the Complete Streets program that we've adopted.
Yeah.
And that way we
Right.
look at all of them in together. I mean, his ideas here need further discussion, but there's other things, you know.
Well, the other part to this is, down here in the very bottom, it says, I know he hand wrote in, a typical 50-foot public right-of-way. If you want this to be a public way, you're going to have to build it bigger. If you're going to go private way, you can go smaller.
And
that's
then-
what it's board-
And do we allow for that in our rules and regulations?
No, we
No.
just have to waive them.
You just waive it, it's only one. And whereas if you look at the Sustainable Neighborhood Design,
Yeah.
road design, and also Mass DOT, they have roadways different, for
Grades,
different
yeah.
capacities in your speeds, you know, and the widths of it. And, you know, again, all of this is really to help have less impervious area, right? I mean, the stormwater, if you have less pavement, you're collecting less stormwater, you're having less storage
Yeah.
facilities that have to.
You're recharging the groundwater, you're doing all kinds of great
Exactly.
things.
But
And-
at the same time, we want to keep standards high, because even at Walcott Woods, let's say, they may end up becoming a public way, you know, 50, 100 years from now. We have so many private ways that have become public ways in town. So many ways that just started out, this is going to be private, and that neighborhood paid for the plowing, and that neighborhood did their own trash and everything, paving, and eventually the town ended up absorbing it.
Well, usually it's because the neighbors have petitioned an article
They
at
want
town
to,
meeting.
sure, and they
Right,
pay
yeah.
great taxes, and you want to keep
Yeah.
that neighborhood happy, and now now the town has this roadway that's really not up to snuff.
Yeah.
And now what? Now now the town's responsible for the utility. So anyway, so it's almost like we want to have the ideal street and the ideal standards and a way to waive them. is one way of looking at it, you know, and that's, you know, there's a lot of places we'd love to have sidewalks, but you're never going to fit sidewalks there. You're just not going to. And you're not going to have the, you know, the
Cape Cod berm. What-
radiation.
Well, I
and
think in lots of towns, there's a difference, you know, there's a public way that's going to be designed a certain way, and then, you know, you sort of go down the,
other-
you know, and that's something to take a look at. I mean, you're
Yeah.
not going to solve the answer,
Right.
get
And
the answer
even I
right now.
think the ideal that we have outlined is not really ideal. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Okay,
Like, to your
that's-
point.
that's fair,
So
that's
that
fair.
at a
Like, come
minimum,
up-
what we can do is adjust the ideal that's in our bylaw, and then if
Yeah.
we have to waive it in the future, fine. But
Yeah,
make it more appropriate for today's
yeah, I mean, a
standards.
50-foot right-of-way, usually it's 40.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
don't
I
know why we
think,
have 50.
I think we're not going to get
Yeah.
to a place where
Right.
we never grant waivers, but I
Right.
do think we should look at, the state has an initiative to do this. There's a lot of work that's been done by agencies that have more expertise in this. And
Sure,
so I
MAPC
think,
has
I think
all
we
sorts of
need,
stuff.
and then maybe it's a working group, maybe it's just a couple of meetings with Chase and Bill and someone from our board to kind of walk through all the options for us to consider and then come back to the full board. Because we're not going to be able, I think it's going to be hard to try and do this sitting around the table at a meeting.
Oh, yeah.
So,
I mean, I would be totally comfortable with Bill or Lauren taking this up.
okay.
I don't know how they
I've been
feel about it, but.
Doing this with John lately, but I know that John wants to continue to the next step, to go
Yeah.
to the plans that you just mentioned.
And
The
he's
other
the
one-
right person, I think.
The,
Yeah.
the
Mm-hmm.
next
drive
step would be Vision Zero, which the Traffic Mitigation
Yeah.
Committee is looking at. Vision Zero is something that the city of Boston is trying for. And if you've driven in the city of Boston lately, when you get to an intersection, they're narrowing those down. They are putting in those bike lanes. They are increasing those walkways. They are putting in those speed bumps that they said they would never do. They're in the neighborhood and they are slowing cars
Well,
down.
they're doing some pilots, right? So, I mean, I think it's interesting that Boston does pilots on a number of different things for traffic calming and other things. And it would be good for Milton to try pilots in certain neighborhoods to see how that works, you know. You know,
I mean, you can put in removable speed bumps.
Yeah. So I guess what we should,
everybody's-
so how do we feel about Bill and Lauren? So April's suggestion is Bill and Lauren and working with the
I mean, unless somebody
DPW.
has a burning desire to get involved. I don't. I don't know.
Does
enough about
anybody
this, but-
else want to?
Yeah, I will.
All right, so,
Perfect.
Good.
Sign her up before she changes her mind.
We're so lucky.
all right, so that is a great thing because it's been something we talked about a year ago that wanting to tackle, and then we got busy with other things. So that would be great. Do we want to, did you want to think about those other committees?
Well, I mean, I think that looks as if at some point in the game, we're going to have to think about, you have this Milton Village Central Avenue Revitalization Committee. At some point in the game, it looks like in the next year, we're going to be having some kind of a committee like that for East Milton.
Right,
So,
so maybe that would be
Yeah.
a good place?
Yeah.
You too.
yeah, I mean, but I think, you know,
That's a good, that's a really good point. I think,
if you're
that's a
thinking that
suggestion, and,
you've got this moving along for Milton Village, you know, for the central.
Yeah, and the
Avenue
reason that
thing.
got started was a precursor to Steel and Rye
Yeah.
and that Central Ave development,
Right.
mixed-use development, so
Yeah.
you're right. I mean,
Yeah,
it was
so-
at this stage.
It seems like that should be the next kind of committee, don't you think?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's out now, right?
Yeah,
Some people are
Yeah.
gonna start asking questions.
And, I mean, we need somebody who's going to drive it on a more regular basis than we can as a full board every other Thursday with other business.
So I guess, you know, one of the things that, if we want,
How many boards do you want to sit on? How many kids?
yeah.
You just talked about a few.
so
No.
the working.
I'm actually not a meeting person. I kind of like, you know, to sort of just do stuff and
Yeah,
then
yeah, yeah.
throw it at somebody else and you guys take a look at it. I don't have to talk to somebody else about it. That's why I work by myself and, instead of in a law firm,
I can appreciate that.
in my house.
There you go. I do the same. I'm right in my house all day.
So, all right, before we finalize, so let's just look at what zoning articles we might have capacity to tackle and how we want to do those. So we have What's the wetlands regulation, Lauren? You have the list?
Yes. I do have a
I mean, I know what it says here, but I don't
Let me
recall
see.
how that got
I
brought
was
up.
just, this has been on here for a while. Let me jog my memory. Oh, this section in the wetlands regulation, it gives the authority to the select board to grant permits for a variety of wetlands actions, which is, they don't do that, so it needs to be revised or moved to the correct authority.
That's in the zoning bylaw?
Yes.
Really?
Or, I have to double check, but this is one of the things that,
It's been
Alex
lingering?
Whiteside had pointed out
Oh, okay,
some time back, so.
so should that go to Concom?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, there it is. It's in,
It's
yeah.
also kind of redundant, there is another general
Page
bylaw that addresses
19.
it, so that's why there's the option to just remove it instead of revise it.
Well, I think we have the right person here. She located it. I didn't even bring my binder.
I don't even know why we have this in here.
That's the point, I
That's the
think.
whole point.
Yeah, so that's an easy one.
Yeah, we should do that.
All right, so let's target the fall town meeting for that.
Are we targeting a revision or removal?
Removal.
Removal, that's what I hear. So the condo conversion came up because we have some large single families on less than 10 acres that sometimes have been challenging. You had the 120 Central
Yeah.
come to you on the Board of Appeal, right?
Right.
So was on what, 2 acres, I think?
Not even,
Not even?
yeah. I mean, that was a tough one because there had always been, it's an old Victorian, it had a garage, and in the olden days, there was a caretaker's apartment above the garage. And I don't know for how long, but considerably long period of time, that's been rented out.
Yeah. That's the house up on the hill?
Yeah, I mean, it's
Kinda.
sort of,
Yeah, I remember it was kind of hard to access.
Oh, did we go there?
I feel like,
Was that an A&R?
Well, at one time, they were thinking
Yeah.
of subdividing it,
Blue
yeah.
one with the stone?
I don't know,
think
remember
it's
if it was
blue,
blue,
yeah.
but it could
I
be.
remember
Yeah.
stone.
It's just
Yeah.
under agreement right now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
there's 2 different ones, I can't remember.
but it was, so, or no, maybe not that one. It's
No, I
over on-
feel like the one that you're talking about
It was
is
over at
across the
Governor's.
street.
No, it was over,
I don't remember there being a caretaker's one here. This was a
Yeah.
big, single family, may not have been occupied legally as a single family, because it looked like,
yeah.
and there's been others like that on Brush Hill Road, where now that's sold too. But Bill, are you aware of others, this idea of the condo conversion on a property of only sitting on 10 acres? Those are pretty large properties, so the idea was to
Yeah.
consider reducing that requirement, so it would give an option for some of these
Right,
homes.
I know that 120 Central Ave went to the
Right.
zoning board of appeals. We looked at it, the historic commission looked at it. I know that there's another house in that general vicinity. I know 34th Century would like to be able to do something like that. It's a lot of these big houses that have historic value.
Right.
That we don't want torn down necessarily.
No,
Right.
no, no,
And I
no.
think that's what the historic commission came back with, that, you're saving period houses, you're saving something from a certain era. And the only way you're going to get people to invest in it is multifamily.
Do you have a sense of how many might fall into this? So how would we go about evaluating? Because we don't, obviously, we'd want to make
Yeah, I
sure we
mean,
understand.
do we have an issue now with the one that we just approved, that's 2 units on, Church Street?
No, but it's historic. But it's
No,
not,
I mean,
gonna-
they're converting that from a 2-family rental to a condo.
they can do that per our bylaws now.
Okay,
That's not,
that's not a problem.
it's silent, so
Oh.
it's an allowed use.
so if something's
happening all
already,
over town.
if something's already
Yeah.
2-family, it can go condo.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
So now, if something's 1-family, can it go 2-family?
Not
No.
unless there
That would
is
go-
a 2-family on each side.
Okay.
Then they can apply to the zoning board of appeals for that designation.
But let's say if you have, like, some houses are like 8,000 square feet or something like that,
Yeah,
right?
that's like this one. This is the one I was thinking about on
And-
Central
and-
Ave, the one
Yeah,
up on the
yes,
hill.
I know what you're talking
from
about,
Hill,
yeah.
I remember
Those
that
are the
one.
cases that we're talking about, that saving, I know that one of Julie's comments was, one of the comments about her comment was, it's different housing types. Well, there is one of those different housing types. I'm taking something that was 8,000 square feet, now I'm gonna cut it down and it's going to be 2. 2 is still huge.
Yeah.
I mean, some of them you might be able to do more than 2.
I know, but I mean, if
I mean,
you had 8,
architecturally speaking.
that's 3 to 4 units in there. I mean, this is something that happened,
Yeah, what's the,
Cohasset.
yeah,
Roosevelt Road
Cohasset.
on
Right.
Cohasset.
I know. We got
Hingham,
a
the same
bazillion
thing
of
has
them.
happened over.
Yeah.
It's a lot of waterfront.
Well, what's the other one, what's the one that's near Fuller, that big old mansion that's been cut up into like
Well, that was probably
5 or
over
6?
10 acres.
Yeah, probably. Now I
Which-
think about it.
Just a question.
Oh,
So,
yeah, the one that has a
Am I
cut over
right?
sale right now.
Yeah.
it seems like, I mean, we don't think we could get to all these in one
No,
year.
what we want to do is just
So-
understand whether which one of these, and I just did that one for
So
background,
I guess
but,
where I was gonna go with that was, I mean, there are some things on here that I think are gonna take a significant amount of time that we should be doing this year. And so my question would be, I'm having trouble looking at the other ones, seeing how much time they're gonna take to do, to be able to couple them with the ones that I think are needed.
okay,
Right,
so,
so
all
priority.
Yeah, I
right,
think
so.
it's like one of two things, right? Either it's completely low-hanging fruit, like
And
this
we can
first
get it
one,
done, yeah.
Right.
which is a no-brainer.
Right.
Right.
Or it's something
And
that
then-
we have to dedicate a lot of time to.
But that's what I
and
mean,
really dig it.
like I feel like for,
Yeah.
I mean, just my.
You're right.
My feeling is, like the Falcone Adams Court, East Milton, and maybe the Milton Village, like, I feel like those we really need to spend time on coming up.
Right, so there's no chance that Falcone and East Milton would be for this fall. That's because, I say that because they would have to be to the select board the first week of August, and it just,
Well, I wasn't looking at, I
yeah.
didn't mean
No, but I
this
mean,
fall.
so what we want to do is
Oh, no,
target when we're
I
going
don't think you're gonna have that.
I didn't say, I wasn't talking about this fall, I was talking about it's gonna
This
still take
year.
significant.
I don't
work.
think you're gonna have that here.
Right.
That's gonna go to the zoning board,
Which one is?
What?
the Falcone Adams
So
Court development.
we've been talking about the
It is a
opportunity to create
40B.
an overlay beyond
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
that one
Yeah.
Yeah.
parcel, or multi-parcels on that
Yeah.
one project.
Right.
but
So I think that's what you're referring
Yes.
to, right? The
Yeah.
larger plan.
Yeah.
understood that we want to
Yeah.
work on that.
Right.
And it's going to take a lot of time,
Right.
but we are not going to target it for the fall.
can't.
Understood.
Right,
Right.
so we
But it
will.
still takes time.
But we're
But we-
committing, I think we all said that
Yeah.
we were waiting for this, but we're
Yes.
committed to working on it.
Right.
Yeah,
So if we want to say, yes, we're going to work on it with a little check mark, but, the time frame for it at the
Understood.
earliest would be next spring, right?
So this is where I'm wondering, what do we need to do to start a new committee? Like in the Central Ave Revitalization Committee, if we had the East Milton Revitalization Committee, or whatever we called it.
I think we want to review, also, I'm sure the select board's going to want to participate.
Well, I mean, is that a town meeting action?
Oh, I
Is this
don't,
an official committee that was created through some
oh,
sort
that
of-
one is it's in,
Selectmen.
who did it? Which one?
Select-
Which one?
It was the
Well,
selectmen
it's
at
a
the
Central
time, the
Ave
select board now.
Revitalization
Oh.
Committee. So if we're gonna mimic that thing for East Milton, I mean, one thing we could talk about is, let's form that committee.
Or do we want it more of an informal working
I
group
was
that
kind of
doesn't go to
hoping for
town
that,
meeting?
because I wasn't a fan of the last time we talked about building this committee.
Okay.
We kind of got, I mean, no offense to anybody in the select board, but it kind of turned into, well, let's go find some engineers and architects over here, let's find some other people over here.
Oh, this is
And
a
what I'm-
meeting that at the discussion that the
Yeah, I
selectmen
remember we
had?
were sitting up at the Council of Aging, and we were talking about, with the joint meeting we had, we were talking about putting together something.
I have kind of
And
a
I
vague
remember
memory.
Mike Zulis thinking, hey, let's get our boards together, but then it kind of steamrolled afterwards into, hey, we're not gonna do anything, but it might build something different. Almost like what they're building, in my opinion, what they're building for the building committees for the schools and the fire, which is fine.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm thinking, at the very least, when we had East Milton Neighborhood come in, and now that we've done this, like you mentioned at the last meeting, we've been asked, you mentioned this at Town Hall, we've been asked to work on this. And so everybody's been kind of sitting waiting because this was happening.
Yeah.
Now they got it, and I don't know about you guys, but I'm getting phone calls like, hey, we don't like what we're reading in there, or maybe we do like it, or what are you guys gonna do next? So it's kind of like we should be having these
Well,
informal.
one of the things that, in looking at this, that we had asked them about, and which they responded to, was like to build the community consensus process was in the very
Right.
beginning. And if you look at it, adding staff, well, that would be a real town budget issue. But we do have funds for consultants. And then it says the select board could create a citizens advisory council.
Well, and maybe this is what you're getting to, but I remember sitting in the meeting at Milton High, and one of the people from the UI Tap stuff was talking about one of the things that had come from this is you gotta build a process, and they showed that green
Right.
graphic. Well, that's why I'm saying we probably should work on this, because are we gonna do that?
Process.
Well, right, I think that, somebody needs to, as April said, I think somebody needs to kind of own designing the process. And the question is, who's in the best position to do that? Whether, is that a board, an elected board, an appointed committee led by staff? On the one hand, is it something where it can be staff and consultant driven? As one option, I think, which is they put forth. And the one thing about, they design the process and the input comes from everyone else. So the input comes from the community, the other boards, like our board.
The consultants are facilitators.
Right.
And
Designing the process, is what I'm saying.
yes,
They have expertise in designing a process.
They bring you along for the ride. And,
Yes.
Yep.
So,
they're not telling you what you want. They're not telling you how to develop it. They're letting you develop it, but they're dragging out from the different parties what the ideas are.
like when we did the master plan, they designed the process and they facilitated the number of different ways in which information was gathered, from interviews to big forums and all sorts of things. I mean, it's certainly that we could have a representative, the select board could have a representative to design the process too. But I think that what they've recommended, from what I see in terms of suggestions for how that process might work, seems reasonable to me. But even that should be discussed with folks, to
Sure.
see, and then one of the things, sorry, just one last thing.
Yeah.
One of the things that we talked about a year ago, I think, was like, okay, having somebody help us think about what the scope of services would be if we did have a consultant do it. And just to actually plan this stuff out. And planning this stuff out is what our consultant did on the master plan itself. So, April?
I mean, I just feel like this is very helpful. And I'm concerned about our board having enough time to move this forward in a way that's going to get to progress in a shorter term. Like, I think the neighborhood's been very patient.
Yep.
And we
Yes.
did this a long time ago.
Yep.
And we finally got the report, and if they're already calling, it's because they've been like, what the heck, where's the
Right.
report?
People have been
So
asking.
now they're going to expect progress. And I'm just worried that we only meet twice a month. We're in this room for 3 hours at a time, and we have other applications. So if we're talking about creating a vision, I mean, I think that all of us are capable of doing, informing the process, but I do think it's going to take some other body that is thinking about this every single day of the week, and that's why I thought a separate committee might be a good idea.
Yeah.
Representative of, like you said, just like the Central Ave thing, a couple members of the public, a selectman, who knows, maybe the town engineer, other people that have these expertise. Just because that's a dedicated group of people who most of them are only thinking about this on a day-to-day basis. Not getting bogged down by A&R applications and other things that are going to slow our progress. I just don't want to let the neighborhood think that we're not paying attention, because I
Right.
think our intention is to move something along for them. I don't know what that something is, and I'm just concerned that we're not going to have enough time to make steady progress on a regular basis that's going to meet their expectation if we try to do this ourselves.
Yeah.
So one thing is, if we go to an appointed committee, that's going to take time, because there's not even another town meeting to.
Well, that's
like-
why I was asking, is
Yeah.
this require a town meeting, or does this just require the
Well,
selectmen?
just like the school committee was town, the school
that's 'cause they're
building
gonna
committee.
spend money.
But see,
Oh,
it's
okay.
not usually, not usually done that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
When I've done 40R districts in other places, we've hired a consultant.
Yeah.
And, the town planner has worked with the consultant, and some, random people who are interested in the town, but it's not a formal sort of thing. I was involved as town council. So, we drafted the proposal, to create the 40R. We did the regulations, all that sort of stuff. Did the processing application to DHCD to get it approved, all that sort of stuff without a formal committee appointed by the selectmen. I mean, we knew that
Can I ask you a
it
question?
was happening.
So would something like that, would that group go out and then gather information from
Yeah.
the neighbors or from
Yeah.
the businesses
Yeah.
or from, and then, yeah.
There'd be
I like-
drafts.
I
There'd
like
be
that.
drafts out there.
Yeah.
I mean, it was kind of funny.
That sounds like
So
what you're
that
saying, something that has
works,
the
yeah.
time.
It's
Yeah.
just a different
Yeah.
philosophy.
Yeah.
But the
Right,
only
it's just
problem
like
that I
there's
have
kind of
with
two
it, though,
different-
is that was
Gotta
a
spend money
finite
on it.
set of goals.
Sure.
Yeah.
A defined set of goals. We don't know if we want, we don't even know what
Well,
the
maybe
heck
you need
we're
both.
shooting
Maybe you
for.
need a committee to go put this together, the plan.
Well, I mean, I think you need a consultant, seriously.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
And I think I mean, you got this report from ULI, which I thought was really funny since I did one of these for Northeast Harbor. And I knew some of the people on this one. But, so we have kind of an idea about what we should be doing, but I think we should be looking at a consultant to sort of say, okay, like you said with the master planning, set it up to, we have a process. And we get neighborhood
so
input and all that kind of thing, and then, you lay the right groundwork.
Right.
Yep.
And then from
But it's not
that,
happening here at this
Well,
board.
that's
No,
that's
agreed.
what I want to agree
What I
to.
was, what I was saying.
Yeah.
Because we're not going to deliver. It's just not going to happen.
So what I
And
was.
it's true, and I'm not
hate to disappoint
insulting
you.
us, but it's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
we're just not going to have the
No,
capacity.
and hopefully you didn't think I was thinking that. What I was
No.
more saying is it's got to be on our radar
Totally.
to do that.
I
Yeah.
completely
My
agree
theory
with that.
is because we haven't done anything, because it's almost like we've been waiting for a while, right?
Yeah.
So if
We've
we,
been slammed
but we've
with
no, but we've
Carver
also
and
had a
all that.
reason to wait, so
Yeah,
we're waiting
yeah.
for that.
We're waiting
But
and
now
we're
since it's
different,
back,
yeah.
my thinking is we just 6 months can go by fast.
Right.
If we don't have this conversation a few times, we'll never hire somebody.
so I know Denny wanted to say something, and I'll hold my comment until you.
Oh,
go
thank
ahead.
you. No, I just wanted to add on, I think something that would help the community, and I've heard it at a variety of community meetings, is a market analysis of what kind of businesses would do well here and what kind of options the neighborhood has. It would help them be able to visualize, I think I was talking to Kathleen and we were discussing how there's a lot of empty offices. So when you hear office space, that doesn't get anybody in the community interested or excited. But if there were a couple of different options that people could imagine, I am very interested in boutique, mom and pop kind of things, but I don't know if they would be successful there, but very walkable. Because I'm imagining a very walkable, pedestrian-friendly, family-friendly. I know there's a lot of kids and families, and we want to encourage more seniors and one-stories there, and on and on and on. But I just feel like that's a huge piece that's missing, and I know it's missing because it's expensive, but I do think that would kickstart the community in visualizing what can happen here. Because if you start the discussion with density, people don't, and I think it's been a very rough discussion up to now. I spent a lot of time having meetings with the neighborhood.
So I agree with you, Jenny, because we need to understand what the potential market absorption could be for every potential use.
But one
Because
of-
I think people are having unrealistic expectations.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things I was going to say is, it says here, a local real estate broker indicated that there's solid demand for commercial, retail, and office space, just the existing stock of it's not of subpar quality. So it's like if you had the right kind of building, the market is actually there for it. I've heard this from people too. It's like, I'd love to have my office in Milton, but there's nowhere for me to have it, because the buildings that we have here are really pretty subpar.
Yeah.
So that's what they heard. I think there's a lot of expertise in the square itself amongst the business community and
Yeah.
residents, and I think market analysis may be something that should come, but I think the dialogue should start first, because I think people who are working there, the brokers who are working in the area, who talk to the people who are looking at space, are already have some of that data. And then once we gather that data in the community process, so I'm saying
Yeah.
the business community as well as the residential
Yeah.
community, then we have the background to go forward with something further.
Yeah, I mean, I think when people were asking me, outside of the fruit center, what my platform was. And I had to look back and say, well,
Like rewriting the bylaws.
what do you like? Was my sort of political response. But, people said, we want more commercial development because the taxes are killing us. And so you say, okay, well, that's terrific. But when you think about Milton as opposed to other towns, is that the 2 or 3 places that we had that were commercial, like the Hendry's plant and the Hood plant, got replaced by housing. And it's not like we have an abandoned factory that we sit around and say, oh, that would be perfect for artist lofts and all that sort of stuff, like Hopedale, because we don't have that.
Right.
And so
And we don't have a lot of open space
Exactly.
somewhere next to a highway.
Right.
We just don't have it.
Right, so you're sort of looking at what we've got, and there's really not a lot of places to plug in like major commercial development. And so you're looking at what else could be that's lower stuff. And then you say, as I said, every office building I've driven by in town has a space for lease.
But go look at them.
Well, yeah, that's part of the problem. But the other problem is that, there's people like Richard and I working out of our house.
People-
What do I need?
Tons of people
Yeah.
doing it now, yeah.
Yeah, what do I need
don't
an
need an
office
office
for?
space.
I mean, when I was at Ropes and Gray, we had, 2 lawyers, 1 secretary for 2 lawyers. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I have this share. And now they must have 1 secretary for like 20.
I have an
You know?
office space that I haven't been to in 3 months, and we're closing it down.
And I mean,
Just
the
because
reality
I
is
don't
if you
use it.
need office
So-
space, you're just gonna go to a WeWork. So
Yeah.
That's what I'm renting.
Well,
yeah.
so what you try to think about is like Denny is saying, is that what can you think of that you can't get on Amazon and that you don't need to do on the internet. So that's sort of service and restaurants or, interesting boutique that has a collection. But, how many of those can we actually support?
And are there enough feet on, yeah, exactly.
But-
Enough feet on the ground to
Those things
get
used to
there.
do well in East Milton a long time ago. We used
Yeah.
to have like bowling alleys and movie theaters and things like
Right.
that. Those things did well at a
Yeah.
certain time when there was an amazing amount of children there.
Right.
Then it went down. Now there's tons of children there again. So
Well, an ice cream shop probably too. pretty
yeah, that went away a lot of years ago.
Yeah, but that's,
Right.
so, but you have to sort of think about, well, what kind of commercial development is, you say, oh, I want a store, but seriously, everybody's ordering everything on Amazon.
Right. And,
Yep.
dry cleaners might not even be a thing now because everybody's dressing so casually. I mean, everything is changing.
And they pick
So
up at
I
your house
just
now,
don't know what would
Yeah.
really work. I know, like a pet store would probably do great there, like, or a pet sitting place or
Yeah.
something. I don't know,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
there
but-
are trends that you could tap into in that area. And,
Yeah.
and I would love to see, like, boutique-y, mom and pop, that local people could own and operate and all of that. Like, that's my sort of,
Yeah.
towny dream.
Yeah, what you said a few minutes ago about the pedestrian friendly. I mean, look how well Starbucks does with that little seating outdoors. I mean, that's,
Oh, yeah, it's
when I saw them put that in, I was like, who's going to sit out there? It's packed all the time.
Well, the thing about like a
That's the best. I
Starbucks
would
or
love to
a
sit up.
place like that is you can
Yeah.
get internet, but people go and use that as their office. Bill's had his hand up for quite a bit of
Oh,
time
Bill.
over there. Bill,
Sorry
go
about
ahead,
that.
please.
The comment that keeps getting made about the office space going unrented. I know that there are several buildings in town that have signs that say, office space for rent, but when you call them, they're full. Signs are still there, they're full. The other part to that is it a legitimate office? Does it have the adequate egress? Is it ADA compliant? The second floor, the reason you're seeing 524 Adams Street on the 523 meeting is because they're going to take and make the second floor handicap accessible. They are putting in an elevator so that the second floor is accessible. They're going to move the doors so that the door, when you walk into the building, makes the entire downstairs handicap accessible. It helps on the second floor. They can't rent the spaces on the second floor because they're not ADA compliant. So you may see a sign that says for rent, but it's not a legitimate office that they can get a permit to go in and do work on that office. They're trying to put your comments about boutiques. There's a person who wants to put a dress shop into Milton Spa and Nails, right next door where Sprint was. It's 800 and something square feet, but the ADA compliance component to that is costing the developer and the new
Potential
leasee.
lessee, yeah.
It's costing both of them a fortune, so it's knocked them back at least a month. It's coming, but they're fighting with the building
ADA,
inspector
that's a good
over
thing to keep in
how
mind.
how much makes sense to put into the building.
Yeah, but then we are able to, I mean, people are financing new projects.
I think just
The
real quick-
Conleys are just doing that
I think
on
just,
Adams Street.
and not to speak for you, but like, I feel like the spirit of some of these comments though is, and not to get into the conversation about the specific East Milton project, but if you have a developer come in and you say, hey, I know what the neighborhood wants. Can you imagine if we had this family friendly, you can walk all your kids up here, you could do all, this is what we plan on building, and oh yeah, we're gonna have some apartments and businesses in there. It's a different conversation than, hey, I want to build a big apartment complex.
Definitely.
So it's just a
Yeah, no, definitely.
easier way into a neighborhood with a big, huge change to say, hey, because personally, I live there I got 3 kids. I would totally walk up and get ice cream. There isn't any place to do it. I mean, unless I want pizza, or go to a restaurant, which is fine.
Or
but
to get your nails done.
or to get my nails done. But it's not all the time. But so, yeah.
Well, we
there's
got
people I think
pizza
would love
covered.
it.
And it's also, it would be really wonderful if there could be options. So
Yeah.
if the neighborhood could feel like they're part of understanding the options and the thinking that went behind them. So in other words, there's 7 different things we can do. This is going to bring in more revenue for the town, but this is going to be more child friendly, or this is going to be more, there's pros and cons to everything, and just kind of putting it all out there, and then encouraging the whole discussion.
So one of the interesting things I
The
think.
engagement, thank you, that's the word, thank you.
One of the interesting things that I've seen is that a lot of times developers now, especially in Boston, have to look at the first floor as like they don't even build it into their pro forma in terms of revenue, because first floor, sort of retail space is changing so much. So everybody was saying, okay, they'll put a restaurant in, but restaurants are closing now too because like the competition, and the cost, is pretty high. The cost of opening a
Can't
restaurant.
get labor.
And you can't get labor right now.
Yeah.
But one of the other interesting things is, so a lot of our work in my office is with, smaller developers who do, maybe 20 or 30,000 square feet. And they work with the community too, where they're looking at how do I make affordable first floor space? So, because oftentimes these developers will look for a tenant that has ability to sign a guaranteed lease for 10 or 20 years, so they look at a bank, or they look at something, like if you look at Milton Village, you've got at least 2 banks, right? And I'm sure there's other banks circling around that would like to open there, but how many banks, in terms of, you've got 10 spaces that you can fill, you want something that somebody can go to get the coffee, right? Like Milton Village doesn't even have the Starbucks or the Brugger's or whatever all those things are,
Coffee
right?
break.
Yeah, but
Central Ave.
it's a Central Ave. I mean, it's
Well, the
further over.
problem is, when you come into Milton Village, right, and you're heading out to the city, you'd have to stop the car and cross the street if you wanted coffee. And so nobody's going to do that because they're just going to keep going to work. You know what I mean? Coming home would be a great place to have a coffee shop, but who wants a coffee at 5:30?
Or a wine.
Okay, that's what you're talking about. We need some wine there.
If you live there, though,
Yeah.
it's nice to be able to walk to. But anyway,
So-
the point
so-
is like really it's a challenge not just in Milton, but a bigger challenge overall. And it might be that, the town needs to think about incentives to attract local businesses in terms of, I don't know whether it's taxes or other things.
Well,
other
you can
tax
do, I mean, there is
programs.
there is a program you can do for, some, it's, a tax deferral, TIF agreements, tax incremental financing. That has to get approved by town meeting.
And you have to have an income.
And you have to have an income, you have to
Has
be
to be an
adding,
investment.
you have to be adding, jobs and all that sort of stuff.
In value to the building.
And it's hard to imagine that we'd have something that would be of the proper size,
Yeah.
We
too.
were looking at that for the assisted living
Mm-hmm.
on Randolph Ave.
Yeah. Yeah, you could probably do.
I mean, that's
fit
not
for
even a
that.
zoning thing on this list,
Yeah.
but there's people who've been interested in assisted living. So,
Okay, but-
so let's say, okay, we know we want to work on designing a process. Staff's going to work on designing a process.
For that, for the Milton Square. So if you're going back to this list of potential zoning articles, so you had the wetlands regulations for fall to have a town meeting to remove that. You got this Milton Village overlay, are you going to have a vote for that in October?
Well, I don't know if this board will think it's ready for October, but the MPIC is still working on it, so
And is that coming to planning board, or is that going to selectmen next? What happens with the village?
the wharf went to the select board.
Okay.
The wharf, well, and the park commissioners, so they're working on the wharf aspect of it. The zoning would come here. Because zoning is, well, the select board could do it, but I don't think they're necessarily going to do zoning work, right?
They're not going to do, they'll do the waterfront, you're going to do the zoning.
Yeah, so what, the status of that is, well, it's, I think I said before, but in the town meeting report, is that there was some additional build-out that people felt we really needed to look at. I've been squeezing that into available time, so it's taking a little longer. But through that, we're learning some things that we had at our last meeting that we'll discuss again on Monday, and then we'll see what the committee thinks. You know,
So that's
whether
sort of questionable for October then?
questionable for October.
And then the last one that's on here for October is the planning board associate, which was before town meeting and got sent back? We gonna
Yeah,
do
we sent that back because the government study committee had done some work on this, and we
Yeah.
found out about that late, and we said that we would kind of bring them in and hear what they had, what they learned in their process, and see. The reason, that was the only reason we really delayed it, because I think there was support for doing it, right?
I think part of it was, some of these special permits take so long.
Oh, yeah, no,
People
I
miss more than 2
totally,
meetings.
yeah.
They-
You can't
they
do the
can't
Mullen
vote.
rule, right, you can't vote,
And you need a supermajority
Right.
to pass the special permit.
right,
If you do something like Walcott and you miss 2 meetings,
yeah.
that was a year and a half.
Yeah.
That just, I mean, yes, we have the Mullen rule, yes, we have the call-ins.
Yeah.
Whether it's call-in by phone or video conference.
For one meeting.
It's tough, though.
So can we
Yeah.
ask the government study committee to come back to us and talk to us about what their thoughts are?
Because we could get that back for October.
Yeah, it's pretty easy.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the signs, I forget which one of these signs, but the signs, we were just waiting for John Flynn to fix the language. So
It's consistent with the Supreme Court opinion.
yes. Thank you.
I feel like, is that temporary signs?
That was temporary.
Yeah, temporary signs. So it's as easy as fixing the
And he's
language.
retiring in January, so
Yeah.
we should
July.
probably get him to feedback. Oh,
We-
July.
July.
So we should
July,
get
yes.
that,
This
we
is
should
just
get that from
temporary.
him quickly so that we're ready.
So is this not correct, that what we just said in terms of,
That's
yeah?
right.
So can
Can
one
we ask
of you
him?
two follow up with John?
Yes.
Okay.
So the other thing that we have
Traffic.
committed to dealing with in October is traffic mitigation.
Right.
And we had, Peter Mullen had some really good comments, Alex had some comments, I don't remember who else, but
Oh, that was the one that got pulled at
Yes.
the February meeting.
It'd be nice to do that one.
What we're trying to do is get this into the business districts, so that
Yeah.
if you
Broaden
had a
it.
business
and
development,
lower some thresholds.
Yeah.
right? And we should look at the numbers. We weren't talking about it at this last town meeting, but, looking at 27,000, I think you both
Yeah, we
pointed
didn't want
out.
to cap off at 27. I mean,
So that, the
I'd like to
amount,
revisit that.
yeah, so the amounts could be revisited, I think,
Yeah.
too.
So
So-
is this something that we should ask the Traffic Impact Mitigation Committee to weigh in on?
Bill, in terms of what their charge is and because I know Mike Zulus, when I went to the first meeting, he had a very specific charge that they had. Do you think
Are
this
they
would
like
fall into
studying
the
the
charge?
problem?
I will show it to Mr. Mullen and see
Yeah,
if
I
he
mean, I
thinks
think-
that it's,
Whether it's formal or informal, I'm sure Jeff Mullen will have some thoughts about it.
Yeah, I think is that the way you want to handle that for now?
I mean, I think we should,
Because
Try
you,
for October?
because it's always embarrassing to sort of have that
Lingering.
spend all the time and
Right.
money on printing it in the warrant, and then it just kind of goes and,
And even
Right.
beyond that, I mean, I think we've had
Yeah.
some pretty thoughtful citizens come in and
Yeah.
share their thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Alex and Peter Mullen spent a lot of time on it. So
Yeah.
I would like to review whatever they submitted to us and
yeah.
You would like the traffic mitigation committee?
Or us.
Or us, okay,
yeah.
so,
Or maybe Lauren or Bill or somebody
Yeah.
can review what they said
And,
and come
And
back
fix it.
with ideas. Yeah.
Yeah.
all right, so that's, and on the associate, we're going to get them to come in. On temporary signs, you're going to check with John Flynn. So what does that leave us then?
so so that's one.
Oh, the signs for the pre-existing non-conforming businesses. Bill, tell us how that's handled now. Or Lauren?
They just do what they want.
Um,
It really is. It's sort of like a
It's a
free-for-all.
mess.
we just did it.
No, for the pre-existing non-conforming businesses? No,
didn't.
we did the business
Business
districts.
district.
In a business district.
These are not business districts.
These
These
are
are
businesses
like
in the residential.
Tedeschi
Non-conform-
or,
yeah. No,
Milton
that's
Food
gotta
Mart.
be, Mr. Prondek wants that to go to the zoning board of appeals. The zoning board of appeals doesn't want anything to do with it.
Yeah, why would ZBA want that?
Oh, to approve?
To
sign?
approve signs, but the signs are out of the business districts.
Yeah,
So
so I just have a random place.
The Milton Food
Seven-
Mart.
Okay.
7-Eleven on Houston Ave.
Yeah,
It's pre-existing non-conforming. It was the
Right.
A and P in the 1880s.
sure, yeah.
It's been a supermarket. We're changing out their sign. It's an illuminated sign, and that's the problem.
But
It's
why
an
wouldn't this
illuminated
just
sign.
follow the same process that our regular sign does and go to the
Because it's
sign
in a-
committee?
Because it's in a business
Yeah.
district, in a residential.
No, I know,
well,
I'm
that
just
was
saying,
what
why
we wanted to
don't-
do.
Yeah,
We
why don't we
wanted to
just-
talk about
So,
changing that, right.
so we would
Because we
just,
have a process that
You
works.
want it, you want the
For our people
residential,
on the sign committee.
you want the residential district to be the same as the business district.
I mean, I would want to see what the requirements are, but I think that
mean,
our
they
sign
can't-
review committee process seems to work really well.
yeah.
And the signs, from just what we can think of, they pretty much are comparable to what's in the business districts anyway, right? So let's say you take the, what's the, gas station and lawn equipment or whatever it is
Yes.
at Blue
Little
Hill,
power.
right? That sign is similar to what's in East Milton Square for a gas station, right?
Yes.
And the building, and the car repair shop has a sign, and that's pretty comparable. And then you think about the 7-Elevens and the, trying to
None
think
of,
what
none
other.
of the signs, except for the big one at Blue Hill Power, only the big one on the street is illuminated. All the other ones are not illuminated.
Right.
So they don't have problems, sign review would not have problems with the signs over the door for auto repair
Auto
or
repair, right.
Blue Hill Power. But they have problems with the lit sign. So they have to take the lit sign and it has to go through Mr. Prondek, who then has to give it to the zoning board of appeals because it's in a residential district.
So why
I
don't
like
we do
April's
this?
idea,
Why
yeah.
don't we ask the sign review committee to consider this topic and let us know how they think they should be handled?
Okay.
They're the sign people. They've
Yes.
done a very good job.
Yes.
Yeah,
Was there
Good idea.
the same issue with, near the expressway, what's it, the Blue Hills Bank? Was there an issue with that one?
That's
Or
fine.
the dental,
no, yeah, we had to come before the
The
ZBA,
Seaport
did.
Dental?
The dental.
the dental office?
Heart.
Dental,
Heart.
yeah,
Heart.
but
Park Dental, because they were annoyed because Blue Hill Bank got an illuminated sign,
They wanted one,
and they wanted one.
but they couldn't get one.
Well, they had to come to the ZBA for it.
sign review
because-
committee denied it because they said only
You only have one
there should
sign.
be one set of signs for the building.
So what did ZBA do?
We approved it,
Oh, so they got it.
They did.
yeah.
All right.
He's got a light panel that when he comes in, he can flip the switch. When he leaves, he has to flip the switch off.
Yeah, because the neighbors were not happy about having a light shining in there.
So there's, I mean, that process.
But he
is
said-
fine. We didn't
But he
hear about
said,
it, so-
but he said, you know, his people couldn't find the dental office because he didn't have a
The
sign.
sign review committee made a deal with the bank, when that building was redone for Blue Hill Bank. And
Well, it's a
the
little
sign
unfair.
review committee said, the building can have X amount of signage, this is what the signage is. The owner of the building agreed to it all.
Ah,
Now, there's a directory sign. The directory sign is lit, and the directory sign has There's small panels that go across. Dr. Hart says, well, I'm the biggest person in the building. And we said, fine, then take 2 of those things, but you're still on the directory. And he didn't like that because he felt that he should be,
Right, okay.
Well, it
and
sounds
it
like
had
the
already been
process
an agreed upon.
that we
Clear
had
process.
Sign review.
worked out. I mean, they went to the sign review, they said one thing, that we had an appeals process built in. ZBA did their thing.
Yeah, but so I think it's a good idea to just ask the sign
Yeah,
folks
I
to take
agree.
a look at that.
Totally.
Okay, I think that's a good idea. So that brings us
Since it
to,
was my idea, I totally agree. Smart thinking.
So, accessory dwelling units, I have to say that our accessory dwelling unit thing
it's a tough one.
it's a tough one.
I've actually worked with a couple of families in town on where they want an accessory dwelling unit. And to think about how, most of the time they need to get a variance, well, they have to get a variance anyway
They
to
do.
get it. But most of the time it's a variance just to build it because you're supposed to be putting in an existing house. Well, who has an existing house that's ready for an 800 square foot accessory dwelling unit existing? Not too many.
For 5 years.
And
Well,
then you have to rip out your
That's the thing I have a
kitchen.
problem with, yeah.
No, here's the one that's always the tough one, and Marion McEtrick represents everybody that's come before the ZBA with it, is that it has to be an existing building. So if you're doing an addition to the house, you have to build the addition to the house and then rip it out to put in the accessory unit.
That's silly.
Unless you get a variance. So Marion goes for
Gotta
the
give us-
variance.
Yeah, we have to give a variance, but I mean.
It's crazy
But it's
process.
crazy, why do you have to do it that way? And then the other situation we now have is that lots of places are owned by trusts. And we say you have to be the owner. And so, you have a nominee trust is one thing, but because the beneficiaries are the owners, but lots of these things, when you're an elder person, you're putting it into some kind of irrevocable trust for state tax purposes, and then you're technically not the owner. You can't get the accessory apartment for your aged parent, because your aged parent owns the building, and, which she's not the owner because she moved it into a trust.
That's the other thing too, is that aren't we restricted, I haven't read this in a long time, but
Yeah,
the tenant is restricted to being a blood relative?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Or a caretaker.
And it could be a nanny, or it could be.
Could be a nanny or
Yeah.
an
I mean,
elder
it-
caretaker.
In theory,
Yeah.
it could be, but our bylaw wouldn't allow it, which,
No, our bylaw allows those.
It
And
does?
blood, yes.
yeah.
It does allow both. And if you're allowed to have it, like if it's a caretaker, be above a garage.
As long as
But-
you're getting paid. As long
Once
as you're
you're
getting
getting
paid,
paid.
you're an employee of the owner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the real issue is having it be something that can, and when the need may not exist any longer, is you have to rip it out. It
Yeah.
has to be able to revert back, and you have to show the
Yeah.
plan of how it reverts back
Yeah.
when you submit for it to start with.
Right.
what do you have to do? Every 5 years renew your permit?
Yep.
Yes.
That's a lot of money people are gonna spend.
But I can tell you, when we
Heavy
started
period.
taking this up a few years ago, when I was first on this board, there's a lot of public interest in this, so I'd say it would be something that would take time, more than getting it done by this fall, because you'd have to
Yeah.
get a process that
Yeah.
people can weigh in on it.
Yeah,
As
there would
many
be a big.
people as you have saying it's a good idea.
You have many people
The
saying it's
person across the
horrible.
street who says,
Right.
I don't want it.
It's being done in a lot of places,
Agreed.
and I think Arlington just voted it down
They did.
recently.
Yeah, but they passed the one for tiny houses.
Yeah, so, the thing is, some people are concerned about
Yeah.
having, converting to properties to two families, becoming two families. On the other hand, you hear from elderly who say they might be nice to have the source of income for a property that they don't use the whole, like,
Well, and it's interesting, we had that situation in Carlisle, and we had CPA money and so we used our CPA affordable housing money to set up an accessory unit bylaw that allows you to rent to an affordable person. And, so it had two results. It provided more affordable housing in Carlisle, which didn't have enough, and they were getting hit by a bazillion 40Bs. And it provided a way for an elder to stay in a house they otherwise wouldn't be able to afford.
those had to stay on the SHI, though? Or were they,
Yeah, we got a thing from the DHCD to allow it. Now, it hasn't been a particularly, popular program, but we set that up there, and there's a similar program in Carlisle. I mean, in Situate, that allows for accessory affordable. You don't have to be a family member, but you do have to be an affordable renter.
And it says accessory is self-contained apartment. So does that mean it's part of the structure, or it could be like a coach house or?
Well, in most cases, and when we've had them, it's been part of the structure.
they're supposed to be part of the structure existing.
Yeah.
So the way some people have done it is they do an addition in order to do it. Let's just say you're living in the house.
Yeah.
And now, what I've seen anyway is the adult child and child's family are going to move into the main house, and the widow is moving into the apartment. And yet, where is that apartment in the standard house? It's not there.
Right.
And it's not like you're going to tear up the existing house to build it in. That's why that provision makes no sense.
Right.
Financially or architecturally or anything.
Yeah.
So then they're looking at doing the addition, but what Kathleen says, the way the bylaw is, that means you're supposed to do the addition first and then come back later to do the in-law apartment. And then the plan doesn't work that way. So it's a waste of money and it's
Yeah.
a waste of time. So they go for a variance to get it done at the same time.
Right.
But why should you have to do a variance for something that doesn't make sense?
And technically, it probably wouldn't stand up in a court of law, the
No,
variance.
probably
I mean,
not.
that's the-
No, I mean, that's why we ask for sign-offs from all the neighbors, because we hope that there's
appeal
nobody
it.
that can appeal. But it's crazy, so.
And then I mean, there's a
And
lot
then-
of
and of course,
interest.
to
There's
say,
a lot of
yeah,
interest in this
yeah.
because it's a way for people to age in place,
Yeah.
without having to go somewhere else. And so I do think it is something to take up.
Yeah, but
Um,
not, yeah.
And your experience on the Board of Appeal is, I'm sure, really valuable in terms of what you see as issues. But I think we can say that perhaps we would take this up in the spring if we're not overwhelmed with
Yeah,
East
in a
Milton.
year, yeah,
How's that?
right.
Does that
Yeah,
make
yeah,
sense
as I
to
said, I
folks?
don't think it needs to be, I just wanted to sort of go through this list so we knew what we were working on because if the fall town meeting, right, Bill, we'd have to get the, proposed articles that we were,
By the 1st of January, basically.
no, by
For the spring?
for August, no,
Oh,
for
For the
fall.
fall? August.
August.
First week in August.
Yeah,
And then for the annual, it's
and I'm missing 2 meetings in July or whatever,
It's Christmas for,
because I'm sailing.
Christmas for the
Maybe we
Mayflower.
won't meet in July.
I'll be
Madam
in
Chair.
Sweden.
Oh, that would be terrific.
that means we have June to do any zoning work. We gotta get it in June.
As I said, I just
I'm only
wanted.
1 week in June.
Just wanted to sort of look at that calendar to say when we needed to get articles if we were going to do anything.
So first week of August, so if you're in July, you have to get it in by June. The end of June.
Well, right now, what we've said is the wetlands, which is really
That's pretty
not
simple.
simple. And then we've set
Signs, hopefully.
signs, which we don't feel as if we have a lot more work to do on. We will have to wait to see about where we're at. We're going to ask others what their timing could be. And then if we did the associate, I don't think there's a lot of work with that either. We spent our time thinking about it. John Flynn looked at it. We just want to get the feedback from the other committee. And then the mitigation, that a lot of the issues have already been identified, and that may be possible to get done too. So, but I do think it means we're going to have to ask and try and get others who, like the Government Study Committee and the Traffic Mitigation Committee, the outreach to them is going to be pretty quick.
So
and get
that's
their
4
feedback.
potential articles, right?
Are we looking at that, what's it called, this one, Planning Board Associate?
Yeah, yeah.
So that's 4. It would be wetlands, taking that out.
Yeah, we're gonna wait
The
for the
temporary
government
signs,
Yeah.
the planning board associate, and the
Traffic
traffic
mitigation.
mitigation.
And we might just be able to do the non-conforming business signs too.
It depends. So we'll
Yeah.
put a question mark there.
Because
It's
if all they
question mark,
say
yeah.
is we want to follow the same process we followed for the other stuff,
Then-
that's an easy fix.
That's an easy,
Right.
true. And then the thing on condo conversion and historic preservation, they're kind of they're the same thing in some ways, right?
They
Yeah,
are,
that's what I was thinking.
yeah.
They, that was the context in which we were talking about, why don't we allow condo conversion if it's the same idea, it's just on less than 10 acres of land, right? So the question would be not, what acreage? It seems to me it's like, we talked about what criteria would it be, like what size or what
Does
age?
it really want to go to size? Because in the writing itself, it says 10 acres. But if it's a special type project, you can go to 5 acres.
Why don't we change that to the square footage of the home?
Yeah, why don't, yeah.
Thinking,
Instead of
as
the lot
long as you
size.
can
Yeah.
park on it
If
and
it's
this
significant-
open,
if it's a
some amount of open
significantly-
space.
Significant project, especially
I think that one is going to take a long public process. I think you're going to have mixed feelings, because I remember the last time there was a public outcry, there was some concern about, the neighborhoods were concerned about pushing density into places where we don't necessarily want density.
Yeah, but I think that the upside of it is that otherwise, you're getting somebody that comes in, tears down the house,
Then tries to
and
put up
builds like
5
a bunch of
single families.
freaking McMansions.
Sure.
Nobody wants that either.
No, there is that, I'm just saying,
That's
I
what
don't know
happened
that
at
this is for
120.
October. This is.
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't think it's
Moving
October.
along, though,
County is
to kind
more
of do a little
important.
data
I mean, I
dump
think East Milton is more, I
on
think.
how many houses do we have over 5,000 square feet or 6,000 square feet or whatever the number
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that doesn't necessarily have to happen between now and August, but
No.
I think that's the next
But
step
I
to
do
figure
think,
it out.
I think traffic, if I'm really putting my ear to the ground, I think the public is most concerned about traffic. I feel like we have to get back to them on the signs, because it's been 3 years and
Yeah,
it's
I
the
agree
simplest
with that.
thing that should have been done 3 years ago. So the signs, I'm embarrassed if I meet somebody from the sign committee that it's taken us this long. And then East Milton, I think we have to be we have to be as proactive as we can, because I'm hearing concern too.
Yeah, but I think the East Milton thing is not a zoning, we're not going to town meeting in October with anything on
No,
East
we're
Milton.
not, but I just think of our time.
No,
the
but yeah,
time.
I agree with you,
Yeah.
Jenny. We have to
Yeah.
make some sort of
So maybe what we
genuine effort to push that forward.
The other topic that's not on here, I've been doing research on trees.
Yes,
because
I was
every
just going to
meeting-
say that.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if I'm suggesting a bylaw or rules and regulations. I want to take a look at the rules and regulations and then come back to you. I've been studying a lot of the towns, in different towns, and how they're doing it, and
Yeah.
nobody quite has the right answer yet, but I'm working on it.
Okay.
I might not have it for October, but I'm going to try, and
So what do you think our next step should be? Should we put you on an agenda in an upcoming meeting
Sure, I'll ask for it in a couple of weeks.
when you're ready?
Yeah.
So may I make a suggestion about the condo conversion and the historic preservation? Can we ask the historical commission if they've done any inventory kind of some of these large historic homes and what they feel might be in danger? Or,
That's a good way to.
I mean, that's oftentimes, what triggers this kind of thing
Yeah.
is that people are concerned they're going to lose these historic properties. And when I've toured a couple of them when they were for sale, I'm like, oh my God, this would be a great condo or something because it has a whole floor that was staff,
Yeah.
and then you've got 2 huge floors, it was like a huge ballroom, and
Yeah.
you think, what modern family lives in something like this? I
Yeah.
mean, not too many,
Yeah.
so it's limited in who would buy it and what would they do with it.
It
And,
actually fits in with their charge really well, so.
okay, so good, all right. So we're asking all these other people to do things. So that's
Yeah, but the truth is, the Sun Review Committee, for instance, they're doing this every
Right.
day.
They
Like, I
would
think we would
want to
be
know that-
wrong to not approach
Yeah,
them.
yeah.
And then, can I just say that in terms of inclusionary zoning, I just want to say is something, and I don't know how we want to handle it, but I do think the affordable housing is something that people are concerned about, and I'm not sure what we do with it yet, but like I suggested earlier, if we can at least be a part of the dialogue with other people.
We don't have that?
We don't have it on our list here, but we have it only in
The specials.
Oh.
in each site-specific sort of zone.
Well, I'm just, because I've done it in, a couple other towns, and the problem I think we have is that I'm trying to think how many times are we going to have, usually it's part of, it's the sort of towns that they're getting 10, 20, 30 houses
Right.
in a subdivision. And so you say, okay, fine, for every 10 houses, one has to be affordable, inclusionary sort of. So you're adding inventory and you're requiring that some percentage of that be affordable. We don't get projects really that often that are large enough.
Yeah, that's right.
To sort of have that. I mean, you did with, Pulte,
Yeah, the
you
problem
did with.
is we only get 10%, so
Right.
we're not tackling the problem at all. We're
Oh,
just
yeah,
sort of-
no, I mean, that's the argument
That's
for
the
doing the
problem.
inclusionary stuff, is that every time you add more houses, your list of inventory goes up, and your
Right.
percentage, you're chasing your percentage all the time.
Yeah.
But
I
as
just,
it's,
like, we've said, okay, 10%, but what I'm thinking is that the right percent? Should we have a scalable percent? If you're only doing, we're saying, okay, you make a contribution for 6 units, I think, at Brook Road, was
Yeah, I
it?
know, that was-
And then we say, okay, you, at 10, you have to contribute 1. But I just think, maybe we can be a little more proactive about it, and maybe it's the Housing Committee. I just feel like it should be on our radar screen. And one of the other things is that maybe there's an incentive. If we say, okay, you're going to do condo conversion, well, what about, you can do that if you do workforce housing. So it's not going to be like driving it down to 80% AMI, but maybe it's at 100% AMI or 120% AMI, and maybe it's not on the housing.
SHI, right.
SHI, but
Yeah.
we're addressing sort of the
We're
range of
diversifying
housing.
our
yeah, yeah. I mean, I probably have, I don't know, 5 or 6 examples of inclusionary zoning on my computer.
But they all apply to 10 units or more.
Well, I said I'll take a look, but most of the time when we've done them, it's been, larger, like you've said, larger scale projects, where there's, enough, there's enough fuzziness in the, surplus in the profit that you can put
Well,
it
that's
in.
the thing that makes me worried about Brook Road is that nothing has happened. So when we start applying
Yeah.
these requirements to these smaller projects, I mean, they just don't have that large of a margin. So
Right.
at some point, it just becomes not worth doing. We
Well-
don't really want to say that, especially on this Brook Road thing.
Well, this is where sometimes too, I think like the financial analysis, like I do a fair amount of my work in Boston, and
Yeah.
they have their JP Rocks
Right.
plan, where they were going for, I think, 20% affordability with a density bonus, but there was a lot of pushback, so they raised that affordability requirement, and our clients
Yeah.
were telling them that's making these projects, 20, 30 unit projects, infeasible.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so you have to do the economic analysis to make sure that what you're requiring
Yeah.
is not making projects infeasible.
Right, I mean, because then you're just going to sit there with stuff that's getting foreclosed on and nothing's going to
Yeah.
happen. But, yeah.
So,
In
all
the
right,
Brook
so,
Road, can we waive? There's a variety of things we can waive, right? I don't know if that's
There
one
is
of
a
them.
sentence that says we can waive anything we want
Okay, well,
of
just
our
so
own
I,
requirements, but I can't recall what our exact
I
language
think
was in
we
the
have a
affordable.
contribution.
It
is
was,
what-
yeah, it was either a unit or a contribution that was up to us to
To
determine.
determine. And so
Okay.
we, like on some, like we determined contribution on the one off of Highland, which was what, 6
Right.
lots? So
Yeah.
we had a lot of discussion
On
about.
Forge. what
And then
was it?
Ford Ranch
Yeah.
Road one,
Yeah.
we determined the contributions and they weren't the
Yeah,
same.
Marina
Remember?
State on Highland
Yeah.
was like
Yeah,
50 grand or something.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But, I mean, as I said, in the world of affordable housing, 50 grand's chump change.
Yeah, well, that's why, I mean,
That, yeah.
but we could also say if it's going to make the difference of the project to go or not go, oh, it'll be 5,000.
well,
You know,
especially in
or-
places we want to revitalize.
That's what I mean. That's
Well,
what I'm
yeah, I
saying.
mean, as I said, that's always the thing that we do with CPA money, is that, we provide cash towards a project so that we get more affordability. So
Right.
we get, so the developer is only required to do 10%, let's say, under a permit, but we'll get 2 extra units because we're going to buy down some of that stuff.
Right.
So, I mean, that's always the advantage
Right.
of using the CPA money.
But we
Um,
have,
but
you can
we
use
don't have that.
affordable housing trust money
That's what I was
too.
going to say.
Yeah, they do, and so there's some money that got voted to them, and what you do with the inclusionary zoning all the time is that you say, okay, fine, if you're not going to be providing the unit and you're going to be writing the check, you're writing the check to the trust.
Right.
Because otherwise, it goes into the general fund.
Right.
No.
Right.
And you never see it, so.
So there's this interesting case study that's referenced in here, and
Yeah.
Lauren uploaded the case study onto the Dropbox.
Mm-hmm.
I read it, and it's in Reading, it's in a 40R district,
Yep.
and the photos of it look lovely. It might be interesting to see.
Oh, yeah.
And the thing there is, there's a $200,000 contribution to this project from their Affordable Housing Trust.
Yep.
And this was one of the things too that was, I know I talked with some folks about in terms of when we were talking about East Milton and possibly Falcone is, can the trust buy down some of the units, or can, other creative ways to be thought about? So inclusionary zoning, maybe it should be slash, housing is something that I think, because I think, like, to Denny's point, just the 10% kind of treading water,
Yeah,
it's never going to get us
there. We don't
above
know enough
5%.
production.
No.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
So we're going to have to use these other tools, I think. So I don't know, the Housing Committee,
Yeah.
Rich may, I imagine, at some point send some for us to consider, right? I mean, I think that's one of the things. I've attended a few meetings. But some of this discussion you can take back to them as well, right? So that, I wanted to add, I guess we forgot it on this, is to have updates so that you could provide us an update. So maybe we can do that at the next meeting in April. I just think we have enough committees now. If even if we don't end up talking about it much at the meetings, it's good to have it on there so we can talk about the updates. All right, so I think we've covered zoning. Rules and regs we have a plan for. That leaves us, and we've talked a bit. Is there anything else folks want to talk about related to the report? I know we just got it, so I'm wondering if you want to talk about some of the detail of it at our next meeting.
I haven't had time to go through it all.
Yeah, I barely.
Yeah, I haven't either.
Okay, so what's
Conclusion and put it.
we've talked about some things about ideas about moving forward on it.
Yeah, I mean,
April's point about not losing a lot of time, like if we say, okay, in 2 weeks we'll talk about it, and then in 2 weeks more, then it's, the summer will be here. So is there further concrete steps that we
Well, I think
talk
we have
about
to
right
just,
now?
I mean, I think we decided, have to decide to a certain extent, there's two ways we can go on this. We can do an overlay district, just to, like you've done all, other places, or whether or not we want to pursue the idea of a 40R, which is like an overlay district too, but, you get some state assistance, there's a requirement for some percentage of it to be affordable.
Kathleen, you're an expert on 40R, no?
I actually helped draft the legislation and the regulations.
So does anybody want,
With Alex, was the chair of the committee at the HCD at the time, because he was general counsel. So that's how I first met Alex.
General counsel.
what's your
So-
sense about, you live in East Milton.
Yeah.
You've followed what's been the discussion in terms of Falcone property and overlay interest. What's your sense about the applicability of the 40R to East Milton?
Well, one of the issues that you have with 40R, first of all, is it has to be a smart growth location. And we had this discussion with the unfortunate 40B on Randolph Ave, that the consultant to that developer said that it was a smart growth location to the state, and that was, as in my opinion, completely insane. Whereas East Milton is in fact a smart growth location.
Right.
You can walk to the bus. You can, it's a center. So I don't think we don't have any issues with that site complying. I've had others 40Rs that have been a little bit more difficult in terms of whether it's a location. This one is absolutely no problem from that perspective. I like to think of 40R when we first talked about it, it's like 40B with a check. Because you get money for the units that you approve.
It's friendly
And
versus
yeah, it's
hostile.
friendly versus hostile. And I think it provides, for the same kind of idea that a regular overlay district would have. Although, as I said, it has the housing component. I know when it first,
Better for the developer too.
Yeah.
40B limits the
Yeah,
developer
for his
and how
profit.
much he can make.
Right.
40R doesn't limit
Yeah.
the developer. So therefore, although you have 20% affordable, which is a requirement of 40R, because of that looseness that the developer can make more, they will go to the 25%, which is, if it's a rental, means they all count towards your SHI.
Right.
But the bad part is you do get density, but.
Well,
any
in looking at
development-
that Reading one, I'd be curious, because it looks like it doesn't overwhelm its business district.
Well, the funny thing about it is when we first had the conversation, and I remember somebody was running for select board and knocked on the door, and it was a Saturday, and he's like, and I said, well, I think we should be looking at, 40R. What do you think about that in Milton? He's like, oh my God, the density's terrible. 8 units per acre? That's ridiculous. And I said,
Have that now.
look where you're standing. You're out my front yard, and I got 5,000 square feet. Seriously, give me a break. And he was a real estate guy, so I was like,
that's
well, I
funny.
couldn't even measure. So it was just, it was just crazy. So when you're talking about density, I mean, East Milton's already pretty dense.
Right.
So it's not like you're adding a whole lot because it's already pretty. And I think the idea behind it is the mixed use. And so going back to your point about, there's office space that's available and all that sort of stuff. I mean, one of the things that you always say is look upstairs. What's happening on the second floor of all these buildings in East Milton? Most of them are empty. They're office space that's nobody's going to rent. And so why couldn't you have a district that allows for shops on the first floor and housing on the second floor?
Well,
The way they used to have it.
Right.
when people say we need
Right
more
now, we
commercial tax space,
Yeah.
and,
Right.
somebody, John Cronin has always commented on, well, multifamily can give you increased taxes, So having, an underperforming second floor
Right.
and first floor versus first floor active, and then taxpayer,
Yeah.
tax-paying residential up above also gives you the people who help support the
Right.
ground floor, and it gives you more vibrant districts. So you get the combination of increased taxes, not necessarily commercial,
Yeah.
but increased taxes, and then the more vibrant district.
Right.
And, some people, because they might live in parts of Milton that aren't like that, don't think that that's desirable for everyone. But some people choose to live in East Milton or choose to live, in Milton Village or along the trolley line there because that they have access to things there.
Yeah.
So it's not like a one shoe fits all. So that's where engaging, people.
If you look at Milton Nails and Spar, when it first went in, when it was Arthur's equipment shop, they used the first floor. The second floor was storage. The way the roof is built, there was no way to get to the second floor. They took everything up by a pulley. So it's
Oh
all
my
built
God.
up. It's all built up that you can take and use the second floor. Falcone came in, redid the second floor of the building. He doubled his floor space because he put an elevator in the back of the building. The building didn't get any bigger. You just now have complete use of the second floor because he put an elevator in the back of the building. So we wind up getting more taxes on the same building. His footprint didn't get 1 foot bigger from what he had before. It's just redo
The assessment for the double.
the building.
Yeah.
But do you have people asking for that?
Do what?
Do you have people asking for that? I mean, there's not that much second floor. I mean, there's only a second floor on a section of East Milton. There's
He's
not
gonna
a second
wind up
floor
putting an elevator
on half.
on 524 Adams Street.
Right.
And he's going to be able to use all of the space upstairs.
Oh, no, I think that's awesome. It sounds like it's a
Building
unique
is
instance.
524.
That's,
Atlantic Financial.
Oh, insurance, yeah.
It's
So my-
actually going to come to us for site plan review.
At the
Denny?
next meeting.
Yeah, so my experience in talking with a lot of the neighborhood when this was first coming up was the initial reaction, let's say to the Falcone project, was people just weren't picturing residential there, but they were beginning to think about it. And my sense was nobody was reacting to a second floor of residential.
It was the fifth floor.
It was the fourth and fifth floor. The fourth, felt like it was pushing, fifth floor just felt like it's not the town. And I
Well, it
was,
put people in perpetual shade behind them, too. Like,
Yeah.
if you're
they
a
were,
homeowner right
they
next to
were,
it,
I mean, I can't
now
tell
no
you the
longer see
number
sun.
of emails and phone calls. I know we all got a bunch of group emails, but there was some concern. You know, I saved up for, for 30 years to get out of the city, and I buy my house and now it's going city on me, and like there's this panic. So, but I do think that there was that curve where people were like, residential, what are you talking about? And then they were like, well, maybe there's a benefit, and we could get the second, we could get the third, but once we were pushing 4 and 5, we
Yeah.
lost.
Well, I mean, as I said, when you set up the district, it's not like you say, oh, well, you can build the Empire State Building here. I mean,
No, yeah.
there are design guidelines that are built into the 40R.
Which I just like to continue to point out to folks that our business districts have no design guidelines, and a business can build right now without having to come to the planning board.
Right.
But they
Except
have
for
to have
site plan
parking, so
approval.
it doesn't happen. I mean, the Village, you could go 4 stories high, but you have to park it. So it
Well,
doesn't
and-
happen.
And that's a problem, because it's an underperforming asset. If you think
Yeah.
about, people talk about we need more taxes, more economic
Yeah.
development, commercial taxes. When you have your business districts underperforming, like Master Plan Implementation Committee, Dick Burke went and
Yeah.
talked to the assessor, and
Yeah.
he came up with what the full tax revenue is. Then
Yeah.
he did the tax revenue based on the MAPC build-out analysis, and it's pretty significant, so, and you didn't see it? You weren't
did it.
there when you
No.
did it for him? Dick took credit for it for you? But in any case, so I think,
Sorry.
Yeah.
just like it's identified in here, our antiquated zoning means that things can't happen. And then there's antiquated building stock, and there's challenges that the building codes and the handicap codes present on
Yeah.
renovating those. So the combination of the antiquated zoning and the antiquated building stock means we're not getting as much both value in terms of taxes and value in terms of amenities as the town
Well, we have
could
to
from
build
its
3
business
fire
districts.
stations and a new school. We got to figure out how to do that somehow. And we all sat at town meeting and looked at the revenue projections, and you've been on the warrant committee, so you know how that
And
goes.
so is it.
Yeah, I mean, so that, it's
We serve together.
it's not good.
Their meetings were longer.
Oh, no.
But anyway, going to your point, Danny, I think there's ways to do it in the 40R that, as I said, you set up design standards and all that sort of thing. That's in part of the zoning. They get to build as a matter of right, so that don't have to spend a ton of money and years and years trying to get, a special permit or, the
But, yeah.
40B.
But also understanding that, as much as
Yeah.
we got to make sure the right thing, it gets built the right way, but
Yeah.
understanding that somebody actually wants to come in and build.
Yeah,
Because if we plan something that's,
right.
Not
Yes.
feasible.
Not
right.
Oh, no,
feasible.
no. And the state sort of looks at them too, because they're not going to give you a check
so
for,
that's what I've heard.
Yeah.
Right, so they don't, if we build it, and somebody comes in and says, you know what, sounds great, but I'm building a 40B, they could probably do that, right?
well, it's harder at that point, because I think you'd have the right, as I said, there's some 40B cases that I have defended on the fact that we've done a master plan. And
We have a
we've
plan
said,
for it.
this is where you can build.
As of right.
As of right. And so
So giving you the
therefore,
ability.
you're not going to be able to say it's a hardship and you have to have a 40B.
All right, so let's get
permit.
going.
This is our vulnerability on
Yeah.
40B, is that we don't
Right.
have any as-of-right housing. So people can
Yeah.
say, we're going to put 1 billion units on the Knights of Columbus.
Understood, but we also
Not
have the
proposed,
town.
by the way, in case
Yeah.
anybody's watching.
There's not a lot of buildable
But
places.
we're not a sympathetic, appellant at that point,
Yeah.
because we haven't done any of the homework to provide any new units anywhere else.
Well,
So that's where I feel like we're
Yeah.
really outgunned in the
And-
40B
And
conversation.
I'm sure Kathleen can speak to this too, but because I was a witness for the town on the Randolph Ave, I read the Housing Appeals, or whatever
Oh,
that
man.
committee's called, decision. They discounted absolutely everything I said in terms of what our town, how one would view a very big development on that site. And they gave all the credit to the applicant's witnesses using 88 Wharf as our density model. The 6 stories of 88 Wharf, the how many units per acre of 88 Wharf, they used that and they accepted that as
Credible
credible
and not
for
you.
Milton, even though there's only one of those and it's completely over there. So we are very vulnerable if they take that, in my opinion,
Right.
and discount
And
everything
it's also
else about our housing
Probably
stock.
helped that we built that without
63
affordable housing too, right?
I mean, that's the thing. So we have built a bunch of stuff with no affordable housing. So it's sort of like, why would anybody sympathize with us?
Right.
Yeah.
We haven't lived up to our legal
right?
obligation. I mean, this is a state law that we're in violation of, 10%. So,
And
I mean,
And I can tell you too that I've heard that, the fact that the town went back to the owners of 131 Elliott and said, please don't build your 40B, build your other development, that the state saw that as, you're not doing anything to try and get
Right.
affordable housing.
That broke
So they
my heart.
see Milton
Me too.
Totally
as really
broke my
doing
heart.
nothing to try and get, so it makes us
No,
even more
fair enough,
vulnerable.
I agree.
on the
Yeah.
train.
I was like,
All right, so,
But we have an opportunity to get out in front of,
yeah.
yeah, so, okay, kind of coming back, we have 2 weeks until our next meeting. I'm looking for some suggestions about what folks think. We said we want to get, sort of design a process to get public engagement. Do we think we should need to talk to the select board? Do we need to talk to the housing committee? Do we want to have more discussion? We did have DHCD come in and at a joint meeting and do some 40R presentation.
right,
You saw
yeah.
that. There's kind of like I think still a learning process for people in East Milton to understand what could be a benefit of a 40R. Do you think there's some benefit just in talking about that independent of sort of a broader process? I just kind of
Well, I think it's I think
brainstorm.
it's too soon to go to the East Neighborhood Association or to people in East Milton, because I don't think we know whether we want to head down that path.
Yeah.
And how we would do it.
Right.
So it's way too early to sort of say, hey, folks, what do you think of 40R when we haven't figured out
Because
how we
that's
would
the
do it?
tool to achieve a vision that we don't have yet.
Yeah, right. So it seems to me that, that we ought to, for the next, in the next, meeting or the one after, is to sort of say, okay, fine, are we thinking about, so talk to the select board. Are they on board with, hiring a consultant to help with the 40R process? Do we have to come up with, get a committee together?
On the funding side, the planning board, town meeting voted in the 50,000 that
Yeah.
we originally requested for studies. That, and the way, when Katie mentioned, she talked to me over the weekend, last weekend, and I said it could be towards 40R, but it could be towards mixed-use overlay. It could be for
Anything.
any
how
of
much would
those.
something like that cost?
Well,
A consultant to start that process?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna do that research.
Okay.
I'm gonna ask around.
And also the marketing analysis. I'd be curious to know how much it costs and.
Well, I mean,
what-
some of the times that's done as part of the 40R. I mean, I've done 40Rs in different ways, where it's been, sort of vacant land, an old state hospital, that sort of thing, which is a
Right.
totally different, circumstance. So I'm going to take a look to see what is out there for districts like ours.
The other thing that
Like how they did it?
Anyone.
that I thought about was a marketing analysis of something that is very Milton-friendly and local-friendly, as opposed to we need people from out of town to come in and park and buy. And, you know what I mean? If we can tap into the local needs and the whole walkability concept.
Well, yeah, I don't
you know,
think we're going to be a place that's going to say, oh, yeah, we're going to have,
like shopping.
an IKEA.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
the small one.
Or like a
McDonald's right
Whole
there in the
Foods or
middle.
something like that. You know what I mean? Like, so that's why I was saying boutique-y, local friendly,
yeah,
this kind of thing. But with that in mind, because we have our parking problems and
Well,
all.
I mean, at this point, we have a walking problem.
We
I'm
do,
one
we
of the
do.
few
Yeah,
people
we
that
have a
actually
walking problem.
walks
We have
through
a
the-
lot of
walks across
walking
the
problems.
deck.
I
Oh.
saw you. I saw you the other day doing that.
It's not safe.
Okay, yeah, I guess I'll do an Avena before I try to see whether I make it through.
No, I made it through in my car, and I stopped
Yeah.
at 2 red lights before you crossed 2
Yeah.
times.
And then, I mean,
'Cause
the
you were
classic one was when I was working on the hearings for the ZBA for the Henrys. I have to get from my house in East Milton to here to Town Hall at 7:30.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I ended up driving to Dorchester and driving along River Street, because I couldn't get across the way.
Yeah, I did that
And
tonight.
the attorney for the
You did?
developer.
I forgot something in my house and I couldn't get back
The attorney
over.
for the developer was stuck in the same thing. He was like 45 minutes late. He said it took him longer to get across Milton than it took him to get from the Cape.
Oh,
He
yeah.
got to Milton and it was like,
Oh my
That's how, I
God.
used to take my kids to
It took me
NSYNC.
12 minutes to, like,
Yeah.
I
It took
got
me an
across the
hour and
highway
20
to
minutes to
Scottsdale.
get
It took me 12
home from
minutes to get back
NSYNC
on one
at rush
street.
hour. And I was like,
What
forget it,
street
we're not doing
extension?
dance.
Well, and that used to be in Milton.
Everybody would be crying. I'm like, oh no, this is the worst.
so we're not going to be thinking about,
Yeah.
as I said, attracting a huge crowd.
Well, and the thing is, like, we lost NSYNC, and
Yeah.
my kids went to, my daughter actually went to
Used to be at the
NSYNC.
Knights of Columbus.
And it used to be at the Knights of
Ah.
Columbus, and Tabor Keeley, who's on the MPIC, said he couldn't find space for them in Milton. And they located close to Milton and Quincy
Yeah,
because they
Quincy,
could
right.
serve their Milton, but it meant, like, for me, going through East Milton too.
Yeah.
And so it is, if you have things more dispersed partially too, you would have less, people needing to go that route. But,
So I'll take a look to see
Okay.
what I can find out for, consultants and what the general cost is.
so I know that Bill and Lauren did some research on crafting an RFP to a community outreach. We sort of talked about that before. This kind of outlays, I think, some reasonable start of a scope
Agreed.
for a consultant, right? So,
Well, that's what I was thinking. I mean, do we just hire somebody to implement this?
yeah, that's kind of, at least just first,
Because
this first phase, right? The first phase is the whole community outreach process, right? So,
I haven't spent enough time to be able to
Okay,
say
so look at that.
anything about that, but I mean,
I haven't either.
without reading it, I'm instant, my first gut is, I know you guys aren't being so specific as, here you go to do it. It's more of, come in, hear what we're thinking, and, start talking about where we want to go from this. I haven't read this yet, so I don't
Yeah,
know
so
if it's
this
like
is-
a, here you
The
go.
first step is sort of like craft
the
a vision.
Yeah.
is the build a community consensus, is
No, I
the
get it.
first
Design
recommendation?
charrette
Yeah.
and, get ideas and input from the community.
And this is when we're trying to figure out 40R, overlay,
Right, so
something
40R is
else.
like at the end of the recommendations,
okay.
once you figure
Right.
out
So
what your
this is
vision
kind
is.
of the broader
Right.
strokes.
Okay, so here's one thing maybe we can think about agreeing on at this meeting. I have concerns about doing another committee for timing reasons. And not that a working group can't be put together, but at least in terms of, if they have a couple of suggestions, adding staff, consultants, or a select board appointing a committee. We've been talking about having a consultant and the staff start this process in terms of, like, the master plan, in terms of doing the outreach and building. So think about that for our next meeting, because if we can at least come up with our recommendation to the select board about how we think the next step should be in terms of, there'll be differences of opinion about whether we want to go through with any of the recommendations in terms of density or other things. But this is all about getting the community engagement, this first step.
Yeah, that's
Personally-
way after the.
No, yeah, personally, I would rather see somebody that's a consultant that does that, do that piece of it.
Yes.
I personally would not want to see a committee put together
Right.
of people that have never done it before.
Exactly.
No, I agree with that.
It's very
I want somebody that
specialized
knows
work.
how to do this process and knows how to, because what's going to end up happening is, once it's done, if it's a committee of folks like if I'm on it, people are going to say, well, you didn't do it justice when it's done. You know what I mean?
Or worse, they're not going to speak up in the meeting, and they're going
Right.
to whisper it to you later, because
Right.
they don't want to say it publicly,
No,
and then
yeah.
you're sort of left there to figure out what direction.
The process part of it needs to be done by somebody who knows how to do that.
So my experience on the master plan committee itself was that we had a consultant, and the committee helped guide the consultant, but the
Yeah.
consultant did the work.
Well, that makes
And I
sense.
think it makes sense to do it the same way here.
Yep.
And it's actually an extension of the recommendation, which is to do further study in the business district.
As long as somebody's leading it that knows how to do that.
Well, and the consultant that was hired for that, one of the reasons that, and the planning board had a role in that selection, was because of their community engagement plan. That was kind of the final deciding factor. I mean, they all had certain
Sure.
expertise, but, right?
Yes.
I mean, that was the, and those folks, that's what they do.
Yeah.
They do these community engagement plans all the time, these people who do
I
planning,
mean,
master
I'm gonna
planning.
drive the conversation so that I get somewhere, which is something I don't know how to do with big groups of people.
Well, I think that it would be a problem just having a committee of interested parties do it. The interested parties will have their input, and because they know the areas really well. But I think
So can I just add one thing to this? So I think this number one, I mean, the adding staff piece,
We're not
I think
gonna
that's
add
beyond
staff.
our control. But the rest of this, so design charrette, community engagement, draft a vision, all exactly what we should be doing. The only thing I want to point out is that the number two, they offer recommendations on different things, expand the commercial district, increase density and height. I don't know if we want to say what the action word should be, but I think the headings are the right ones.
Yeah.
To inform the conversation about what the
to
vision
discuss
is.
those topics,
Yes,
not to
exactly.
come up with not to say that this is already predetermined.
Right, but what we talked about at one point was what are the neighborhood association said, we don't even know what things we should be thinking about.
Right.
And so this, I think, these bolded headings of number two, does bullet out all the things you should be thinking about. Open space, placemaking, diverse retail offerings, cultural and historic character. So I think it's all the things that people knew that they needed to know, and now we have it in kind of a bulleted list, which I think is super important.
And then the other thing I think is really important is that the portion of the funding that was approved for the traffic studies is building a model of East Milton Square. And so then you plug in, what happens if you add 50 units? And that model will show you.
Or 100,000
Or
square feet of
whatever,
office.
100,000
like
square
it.
feet of office, or if it's medical office, because that was one of the things we talked about. Medical office, having appointments every
Right.
hour is a lot different than a law office, for example. So they would,
Because I don't think you're allowed to under our bylaw.
but that traffic model,
It
would,
is true. We talked about
now
that
you're
last year.
looking at doing them, together, which is something that was, came out of the last June's meeting for Milton Village. Is what about the build-out analysis? What about the traffic implications of that kind of build-out? And so the funding, we have the funding approved to do this work. So,
Cool.
So our next step is Kathleen's going to tell us what to do.
Yeah, right.
How much it's going to how much it's going to cost, or a ballpark, anyways.
I'm gonna,
Just for timing, what else do we have on the?
Agenda, do you gotta go?
this is it.
that's it.
No,
This
I
is
don't-
it, and I just wanted to say that please read the whole thing, of course, but
Oh, yeah.
focus on page 18 in terms of what we were just talking about in terms of a next step. And like April said, on page 19, not necessarily the actual recommendation itself, but the topic to be considered.
If, not to give anybody homework, but. if
And I guess on
Kathy,
page 22,
If you
actually.
did know of any properties, I heard you mention earlier that you might know of some similar
What? Oh.
similar 40Rs that.
Yeah.
Reading
if
is
you happen
one.
to,
Yeah, Reading is one.
Reading
and
is
then I
actually
think,
referenced in here.
Reading is
I'm trying
okay.
to think, none of the ones that I did.
I mean, we have a list of them from that meeting, but everything I
Yeah,
looked
no,
at
I'm-
wasn't
I'm-
very close.
One of the ones.
Well, they also say here, Belmont, Cushing Square, Wayland Town Center. And the
Yeah.
thing about reading the one in,
Wayland Town Center was new construction.
Right.
Belmont, the one I did in Belmont was the conversion of a Catholic church, convent and a rectory, that was near Cushing Square. So I don't know whether they did another one after that.
they may have, because there's at least there's in Belmont, there's one I think I came across. It was maybe 4 stories. The one in Reading is 4 stories. And that's a town of about the same population as Milton. So Lauren and Bill, can you find out more about what they're referring to in Belmont and in Wayland?
Yes.
So-
Wayland was new construction.
Well, so is Reading, the one,
They built that whole,
I think that was Robert Walker's project, right?
Reading was an old supermarket that they put this on top
Wayland
of.
was new construction.
So
Yeah.
a supermarket somewhere between 20 and 24,000 square feet.
Yeah, it sounds like it's a little big. It must be pretty big though, right?
no, it's 52,
So
50-some
53
units.
Oh.
50-some units, 4 stories. I mean, really, look at the Dropbox. I mean, the one just
Oh,
added
that's
this
the one. Okay,
afternoon.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, well, in Belmont, did the church was even smaller.
Yes.
It was really tiny.
The other one was St. George's in, no, that was the other church.
Oh, yeah.
That was tiny.
Yeah.
Does that have first floor retail? Is it?
Nope.
Oh, it's just apartments?
Just apartments.
Yeah.
That one, this has first floor retail in Reading.
Yes.
Oh, okay, good.
That's why I think the one in Reading is a good example.
Yeah, that would
And
make
if we
sense
could
then,
have a
'cause you
couple
have to
more
look at some-
examples.
Might have been one in Linfield.
I can't imagine we're gonna block off East Milton Square and make it just an apartment with no red retail.
No, that, I don't think that makes any sense
Doesn't make
whatsoever.
any sense.
All right, so,
Yes.
yes.
Excuse me. I don't believe anybody ever volunteered for the MPIC
Oh,
assignment.
right. I was going back. I jumped over that and left it, huh?
What is
And
it?
whoever it is, we have a meeting on Monday.
You don't want to do
Ah.
it, Cheryl?
Well, I'll do it, but I didn't want to monopolize, so I had,
I think we all assumed that Sharon was doing it.
I certainly did.
I wanted to give an opportunity if anybody wanted to take it, but I'll do it.
I'm hearing crickets. so-
Yeah, great, yeah.
Just,
I'm not that tired to be saying yes to something.
yeah, how about
To just get outta here?
traffic
Yeah.
mitigation? Are we leaving that with Bill then? We didn't do that one either.
Yeah, I mean, just
Bill
add
really
me to the
enjoys it,
mailing
it
list
sounds
if
like.
that's okay, the email list.
Okay,
To the extent that I can go, I probably will.
so you guys need to be thinking about this next year,
Yeah, and I'm
depending
getting
upon
emails
what
on
happens
housing,
after my 15th
But I'm not
year.
going, because you are.
You're more than welcome to come.
I don't know.
You
I'll
should.
add you to the group.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's great. Sometimes we even get some audience members.
Yeah, what I've been doing is looking at the agenda and attending several and not attending all, so it is useful to see. I think if anybody's,
I think Melinda's been great
yeah,
leading
they
that.
have good discussions.
Melinda.
Oh, yeah,
Bill?
Great.
yeah.
Before somebody makes a fatal motion on me, under the A&R that you did in the very, very beginning, can you please take and make the motion to allow me to sign for the board?
Yeah,
You
that's,
approved it, but you didn't make
Yeah.
that component of the
yeah,
vote.
so
Will the registry of
Hi.
deeds take it if it's signed by just you?
Yes.
what we normally do on the A&Rs is to give authority to the planning director to endorse it, right?
Yes.
So, April, do you want to do a motion, take the pressure off of Kathleen here?
Sure. What, is the motion to rescind the prior?
No, I don't think so. We
To
still approve
amend.
it,
So
yeah.
I'd like to make a
amend.
motion to amend our prior motion on 1259 Brush Hill Road, approval not required application, to enable our town planner to endorse the plan as approved in our prior vote.
Good?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I abstain.
I want to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All
Third
those
and
in
fourth.
favor? Aye. Thank you, everyone.
Welcome, Kathleen.
Yes, Kathleen, right out of the gate. Boy, she
Yeah,
was
look
making
at you.
motions
Yeah.
on her first day.